to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
To our roll call. So we start with you, Wendy. Roll call.
Wendy D. Gattano.
Robert Howell, present.
Mary Rose Spalletta, present.
Steve Johnson, present.
Greg Fossum, present.
Jennifer Rusk, present.
Rose Larkin, present.
Ed Schutz, environmental staff.
Okay, well, successful. The agenda, first we need to approve the agenda. We do have some modifications, I believe.
Yeah, so apologize to the members. I didn't get Miss Rose's exotic vegetation, so if we could add that for the sake of time, maybe take off dark skies.
Guys will come off.
And FWC won't be able to be here for A, but I can give a quick update from what I know. They had some last minute delays with meeting or a phone call or something and couldn't get here in time.
Okay, so why don't we
leave it on, but it'll be short. Do you want to move the shorebird nesting after and start with?
We'll start with the sea turtle ordinance obstructions. I'm assuming maybe that's why we've got a full house today. Can't be positive, but we'll move that to A, sea turtle ordinance RE obstructions, followed by Carlos Point Beach shorebird nesting. We can go with street lighting project and then the invasives, exotic invasives. Roll up the motion.
Yeah, I move we approve the amended agenda.
Second that.
Okay. Okay, motion carries. Approve the previous meeting minutes. Any corrections? Any issues?
They look good to me. I move to accept them as written.
I second that.
Got a second? Okay. Corrections? All right, motion carries unanimously. So, move on to public comment. As Chad had mentioned, I think what we'd like to do is have obviously the public comment, which gives each speaker 3 minutes. However, anybody here in discussions on the sea turtle ordinance, we'd like to open that up into a little bit more of a discussion. I think it's more readable for everybody and it works a little bit better. So having said that, do we have anybody here for public comment on any items other than the sea turtle ordinance? No. Okay. Excellent. So let's jump right in there. Brought to the Marine Resource Task Force based on some input to the town council that there are some objections to the sea turtle ordinance as written. And it's the intent of the Marine Resource Task Force to put a recommendation to the town council following the end of this meeting. So having said that, let's open it up. Is that the best way you want to approach it, Chad, or do you have a better?
Sounds good if public or the vendors want to come up and.
Does anybody have anything they'd like to present or to say publicly prior to the discussion, or would you like to just jump in as needed? You're here to... Yeah. Okay, would you like to start?
I don't know.
That'd be a great... Yeah, if you actually have something prepared, that'd be great. We start with that. So, I think to the speaker here. I'm not a pro.
Just announce yourself and then.
Okay. My name is Sharon Faircloth. Good afternoon, Marine Resources Task Force members. My name is Sharon Faircloth. I'm the owner of Holiday Water Sports, Fort Myers Beach. My husband and I have been in business on the beach since 1991. We've been doing business here for 30 years. We raised our family on the island, and I've served on a number of volunteer committees, including Marine Resources Task Force. During the years I was on MRF, one of our accomplishments was developing the Beach and Dune Ordinance. I just wanted to read you a statement from the brochure, which the 2001 Marine Resources Task Force Progress Report. I have one because they're kind of old, but I thought you might find this interesting. Under resource protection, and this was the progress report, like I said, it says the Beach and Dune Ordinance was passed by Council after 3 years of debate and public workshops. It was developed by Marine Resources Task Force to help make management plans that weren't covered by DEP and Lee County. Just wanted to put that out there just so that I understand how hard it is to write ordinances. It took 3 years for Marine Resources and the town and for there to be public comment and to get this ordinance passed way back then. So I just wanted to put that out there that, do realize that it's not easy just to write an ordinance. Anyway, I'm here today to ask for your guidance on the new sea turtle conservation ordinance, number 21-03, and more specifically, not the entire ordinance. It's section 32-113, beach furniture and obstructions. Language in section 32-113 was added into the ordinance after the January 21st, 2020 Town Council meeting, when Vice Mayor Hossafras asked the town manager to include language on beach furniture and equipment transport and jet ski transport. Then, the next month, at the Town Council meeting in February of 2020, the new language titled Beach Furniture and Obstructions was added into the ordinance, and the ordinance was passed. However, after reviewing the video of that Town Council meeting, there was no council discussion on the new language, nor was there any public comment on the addition of the new language. I can assure you, had I or any of the other vendors in the room today known that the beach furniture and obstructions language was being added into an ordinance, we certainly would have stood up at that time and talked and had a conversation with council, but we weren't given that option. We didn't even know it was happening, to be honest with you. In many cases, the new language leaves no opportunity for beach vendors to store their equipment, and it will put them out of business. Just imagine if your government passed a law that put your livelihood at jeopardy and you were never given an opportunity to voice your opinion or concerns. There are only 11 water sports vendors on the entire island. We're a very small group. The majority of vendors are located at approved resort properties and serve as a valuable amenity. We help draw customers to Fort Myers Beach who are looking for fun water recreation to enjoy with their families. These same customers fill hotels, eat at restaurants, buy t-shirts, and buy property here, and eventually pay taxes here. I spoke to Mayor Murphy yesterday on the phone. He wanted me to relay a message to Marine Resources Task Force. He asked me to tell you he agrees our voices should be heard in regards to this ordinance. I'm asking you today to recommend that section 32-113, beach furniture and obstructions, be reopened and reevaluated. There are other viable solutions to storage on the beach, and in keeping with the mission of Marine Resources Task Force, the goal is to sustain the quality of life in cooperation with all whose livelihoods or lifestyles depend on the health of Estero Bay. That's your mission statement. And I just had one question for Marine Resources Task Force. Were you all involved in the writing of 32-113, beach furniture and obstructions? My understanding is that you were in the entire sea turtle ordinance, but this specific language, I just wondered if you were involved in writing that specific language. I think you probably have copies of it. Did you give them copies, Chad?
Yeah, we have the ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah, of course,
Yeah.
we reviewed the ordinance.
Yeah, I figured you did, so I didn't give you that. Anyway, thank you.
All right, no, thanks for coming. Okay, any other prepared statements or any comments before we get started? Okay, come on up.
My glasses on so I can read this. My name's Ginger Weber. My husband and I, Chris, are longtime owners of Mid-Island Water Sports, Fort Myers Beach. I'm here today to bring forward an issue regarding the sea turtle lighting ordinance in regards to the overnight storage of man-made objects on the sand during sea turtle nesting season. Although I'm speaking in regards to my beach furniture vending and personal watercraft locations, New language in the ordinance affects much more. Name a few: restaurants with permitted outdoor seating, hotels with picnic tables, town trash receptacles, tiki huts, beachfront homeowners whose stilts sit in the sand, and more. The section was added between the first and second reading in 2020. It was added without a chance for many business owners, MRF, to my understanding, or vendors on the island to have comment or input on. We would like you to hear a few possible additional solutions for placement of objects that are imperative to our day-to-day business. We are an amenity to the hotels that bring visitors to our beautiful island. That's the handout that I gave you. Basically, I just went through Municode and kind of looked at different ordinances in no particular order, just kind of Googled it and pulled out wording that pertained to other towns and what they had come up with for this exact same thing. And they had not only what we have, but some alternate solutions that I provided for you. So hopefully you can look through those and see that some of those sounded like possible things that we could discuss. Let's see. So in the turtle ordinance, all man-made objects must be removed from the sand or placed behind a dune nightly. The plantings of dunes on a property is not something that the vendor has control over and is not the only solution that FWC or DEP has referenced, as seen in those, the one particular email that I had received that was between Chad and Tanya Long. And then I already mentioned that I sent you the other information. I will say that I know Chad has a presentation as well that has, I think there were about 10 pictures, and it shows times where a cabana or something obstructed. And two of those were from this year. I mean, I can even look at the wave runners in the background. One of them was a 2011 wave runner. So I'm thinking that those pictures were more compiled over maybe 5 to 10 years. And from what I can tell, two of them were from this year. No, there were 130, from the Turtle Time website, 130 false crawls so far this year. Two of them being from beach equipment, which anything is too much, I understand. But if you look at all the things that can cause a false crawl, from natural obstructions, lighting, tourists, residents walking on the beach at night, or even mama changing her mind for an unknown reason and trying again later. Just want to kind of make sure that that comes up, that all the pictures that you're seeing aren't from just right now. We have removed all the cabanas from the beach during turtle season. Understand that those are, there's a lot of them out there. They're too big to be moved. I can see that they can be an entrapment issue. It's not something, so we moved all of those off for I guess possibly 7 months out of the year. And then it just goes, I just go on to say that skis we've always placed close together in a line, and that's what E from Turtle Time has always said was the best case scenario to she felt for the least chances of entrapment. We did come up with some other ideas. I know that in some of the other ordinances, they mentioned the storage boxes, instead of them being straight across, reduce the possibility of a false crawl by putting them on an angle, so that if the turtle does hit, she's more likely to hit an angle and go towards the beach. I saw other places where they take them to reduce that linear footage that's actually blocked and turn them, instead of sideways, perpendicular. So instead of 8 feet across, you have 2 feet across. So that could be applied to the wave runners as well. You could even take a, let's say 3 feet tall, that goes in front of the wave runner line, and it could be on an angle to follow that same kind of protocol. So these are just some things that I came up with. And I know that from what I can tell, last year, that 1 month period when this section was added, this paragraph was added, no one had any chance to come up with ideas. And that's what we're asking, is that we get an opportunity, hopefully, to open this up before September is when we do all of our permitting and we turn in our site plans. So that's important. Site plans that we're talking about if we were doing, say, an alternate, one for the 6 months of the year, one for the other 6 months of the year, that wouldn't come into play until May. So maybe that would be a way that we could get this ordinance opened back up, maybe come to a compromise that's still good, and get it done in time. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Okay.
Else?
Any other comments? Prepared statements? Okay. Good, then we'll open up here to the Marine Resource Task Force. Chad, do you want to?
I mean, I presented this in council. I just more wanted it as a reference. It has all the ordinances up there. But I wouldn't want to represent, it's already been presented to council. I had some specific questions or wanted, technical questions or. Chair.
Has everybody you sent this ahead, so everybody had a chance to review it prior to the meeting, I'm hoping.
Yes.
And many saw the either were at the meeting or saw the meeting.
Yeah, I mean, there was one thing that I did not get to go through as much to council was FWC's advice and advice from Tanya Long at FWC, turtle biologist. So best practices for beach furniture and other obstructions at the beach are to remove it from the beach. Off the beach, there's zero probability that obstruction is going to cause an issue. What other localities have, if it's not possible, like the furniture, they have a kind of a best practices for furniture stacking at the toe of the dune. Was specifically stated, having furniture and equipment at the middle of the beach, not advisable for sea turtle. There was a specific question on outdoor seating areas, like if there's a consumption on premises agreement with the town for people to have drinks out on the beach outside of a business, such as like Lani Kai or has that, but definitely cottage. Her statement was if the turtles can access, going under that bollard, then it's considered habitat. The furniture should be. Also talked to Miss Eve extensively on this. So she addressed the COP and educated me on 12-03, which specifically requires compliance with the section code. That sea turtle, it does refer to Chapter 14, which is an ordinance, but that older ordinance does refer to the furniture ordinance and the WC, which doesn't really apply to COP, but it does refer to the old beach furniture ordinance, which is so also documented that obstructions significantly impairing essential behavioral patterns and that overlooking this could take by the Marine Turtle Protection Act and government's responsibility to adequately implement sea turtle protection were to occur as a result of an activity authorized under town ordinance. The town of Fort Myers property owner could be liable under the Act and the Marine Turtle Protection Act. Went on to say that she supports the removal of all furniture from the beach. All obstructions from the beach. Temporary exceptions due to hardship, such as vendor that has blocked access, so that planting dune areas designated as storage areas to stop the sea turtle from hitting it and possibly laying in the dune rather than hitting it. False crawl. As a poster child back in 2011, 2012. created some dune bunkers. It was part of that, managed beach zone, ideas that we've talked about with regards to dune man bunkers out there, which, gives them the ability to store that, and it does not meet the definition of beach behind the frontal.
Where is that, excuse me? Where? That's Pink Shell, thank you.
Examples by all means not a comprehensive, but just over common denominator is no doing. About dune lines, was a policy passed by staff to dune outcrops, a big wide open beach, and having a line and saying, you know, behind this, you know, imaginary line, you know, that's, you know, quote unquote the dune line. You know, I like to go by what's in writing, and that's why I think we have it, you know, important that we get the writing that is enforceable and that we can forward, which you know, important to have feedback from all the different stakeholders so we can have something that's going to be practical moving forward, so we just don't have words on a paper that we don't really follow up on. So there's no definition of dune. There is a definition of dune. Task force or guy to look at is just the town's own practices and making.
Right, even those Moby mats can become problematic at times.
Yeah, I've
You have
heard.
to think about all of it.
Any questions?
So my understanding, having watched the town council meeting, is that this is really absolutely not a language issue. That basically the difference in the language is simply that it was actually moved within our codes from Chapter 4 or the beach furniture area into the Sea Turtle Ordinance. And that, you know, based on the town attorney and the town manager, this has never been an issue of language, and that the old ordinance had this. It was in a different section versus the Sea Turtle Ordinance, and I don't know if this is part of the LDC rewriting or the, you know, this trying to improve the way our LDC is written. But we don't currently. This was written throughout a number of different ordinances, basically the management of the beach, and now they're trying to consolidate it. So if that's the case, then it seemed to me it was really a enforcement issue based on what the town attorney and the town manager said. It's simply an enforcement issue. I think having read everything, I think, and doing the research on it, it seems to me that, again, it's been enforcement in that at all times it's been any obstructions to the beach and turtle nesting in a turtle nesting area. It's always been required to remove obstructions from the beach. So I'm aware, I think, that basically they look the other way for certain people. I mean, I understand the majority of property owners on the beach do comply with that. Due to some issues, it's been overlooked for a number of years, and now it's basically being enforced. I mean, is that a fair presentation of what the town attorney and the town manager said at the town council meeting?
Me?
Yeah, I mean, you were there.
I can't speak to years past. I wasn't here. Talking to Sharon, I have not been able to get in touch with Keith or Ray with regards to this issue. So again, a nice clean ordinance that's,
Right.
it's enforceable is the goal. You know, there was, so the original change in the ordinance was in 2020. And we have the update with the 2021 that's being referenced. So this has been in effect for 2 years. I have written tickets on furniture. Was issues with turtles running into jet skis, and then being informed that it's been 2 years in a row that kind of brought this to light, and then feedback, getting it back from vendors. So I thought it was, you know, they didn't feel like they had a bite at the apple. So I thought it was important, you know, if we didn't have that process whenever we were writing it, let's have that process now and see where we can meet in the middle, what kind of compromise we can have. Just one minor correction. So there is an inconsistency with the new ordinance and the PWC ordinance. So because there is a caveat in the PWC storage at night, where on a wide beach, the PWCs are just required to be 200 feet back from the water line. But again, I would old ordinance addressed issues with the old ordinance did have, you know, so there was there's an inconsistency with the new sea turtle ordinance and the old PWC, or the current PWC ordinance, where PWCs are required to be, if it's on a wide beach such as the Wyndham, at 200 feet back from the waterline. However, you know, the old ordinance did have a caveat that, you know, it still must not disturb any sea turtle or sea turtle nest. And you do see that, you know, in reviewing other municipalities where they have a protocol for establishing, you know, storage areas where, you know, if a storage area is shown to be an issue, just empirically, that something needs to be done about it, either move the storage area or whatever that might be. I just wanted to point out to you that you have an inconsistency that should be addressed.
That doesn't necessarily change the nature of the ordinance, really. It's just a clarification.
It's gray area, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah. You want to have a consistent ordinance. If you have one thing saying that it can be 200 feet back and another one saying it needs to be off the beach, there's an issue. But regardless, you know, beach furniture and equipment, has always been, you know, furniture, equipment, kiosk from the beach at.
We don't have that slide, right?
Right before the pictures.
What is it? Yeah, okay. So that's right. Okay, so, and that 200 feet was, yeah, that's definitely a gray area, because 200 feet's really just meaningless, I suppose, from a sea turtle nesting perspective. They, you know, there's crawls registered 1,200 feet, so they don't understand that, but that's 200. So, to move this along a little bit, again, the fact that I think the reason we're here is because of the lack of enforcement. I mean, that's the problem. I think if the ordinance was followed, we wouldn't have this. That wouldn't become a hardship to the owners. Again, based on the wording, it's simply an enforcement issue. And, you know, I'm a card-carrying capitalist, so I get the concern you have with moving your equipment. I also see it as as I think about it personally, in my opinion, is that the real compromise, I think, is trying to get the dune, I think, is the answer. get a dune line there, and I think if the property owners, I mean, my understanding of how the beach vendors operate, they actually license with the town, then you individually, either contract with a property owner, or you have an arrangement with a property owner to conduct your business on that property. Is that correct? Or multiple property owners? Is that correct? Okay.
So beach vendors in their application, they, one of the requirements is a letter of authorization from the upland property owner.
Okay, okay.
The permit is with the vendor.
I think what you had mentioned earlier is that's really incumbent on the upland property owner to provide services for you to run your business. I mean, that's my position, I think, right now as I'm moving through this, is that if they're benefiting from the amenity that you're providing their customers that are staying at their properties, they're also potentially receiving some financial benefit for you using their property. And it would seem to me that if those are of value, that they would work with us, provide their customer, which would be you, the ability to run your business profitably, not have to endure a hardship in order to do so. When I see that pink shell frontal dune, I mean, that's just a beautiful approach. I think Ginger, right? Ginger Weber, you operate down by the Wyndham and the properties in the lake zone there. Yeah. You actually have a problem there because of the raking, I think, and the formation of the water, and it pinches you to the front end of the beach. I mean, that's, you know, some input I have. Does anybody have anything else they would like to talk about? I mean, there's a lot
Yeah, I
here
do.
we can
I don't know
discuss.
if I can interrupt, and I'm hoping that somebody can tell me if my thinking is right, so I'm going to face Chad. In other words, nothing has really changed, Chad. This ordinance is basically what we've been living with. The only thing is now we're thinking about enforcing it, and we can't enforce it because the width of the beach doesn't allow enough space for everybody to pull back all their stuff far enough. Am I right on that? Yeah, we haven't really changed anything, or have we?
Well, the exception of that 200-foot line, really, I think, is what.
Is that the
is only
problem,
gray-
the
Is that
200
the only
feet?
gray area?
So the change is that the new sea turtle ordinance is pretty elegant and just says nothing on the beach at night during sea turtle season. So that's
Right,
That's a hard
and that's pretty
line
much more
clear.
explicit. It's a
Right.
change. That's not a change from the furniture ordinance. It is a change from the PWC ordinance in regards to especially wide beaches. And there is also a caveat where the city manager, and exceptions with hardship. So
The city manager could say it's all right for them to leave furniture on the beach at night? That would be all right?
I believe I believe that's in the PWC code, due to undue hardship determined by town manager. Again, that's in the PWC ordinance. Of course. Sorry, Chairman, that's your purview.
Sure. You can say sure just as easy as I can.
Jason Newton, owner of Adventure Water Sports, been there since 1999, and I have the properties from top of the Mass all the way down to the Lani Kai. But since Crescent Beach Family Park, we do everything from multi-crab to cottage. So our PWVL is located where the pier view was, where currently the Margaritaville guests will be coming in. Mm-hmm. So we're up against a seawall. Mm-hmm. And just last week when we had the storm, we had to move everything off. It took 2 days just to move the equipment off, just to, mm-hmm. And it took us 2 more days. We were closed for 4 days just so that our stuff wouldn't wash away during the storm. So it's like someone like me, I've been doing this for 22 years now. I moved here in 99, straight out of college. No one's ever come down, took pictures, wrote tickets. I mean, there's never been an issue ever. We didn't even have vending permits until 2 years ago. furniture. Yeah, the only thing we ever had was a parasail permit, PW, or PAL, and a PWVL, and that was it. Then all of a sudden, so they said, we're gonna have, beach, chair vendors, so now I've got a permit at the cottage, I've got one at the Beacon, I've got one at 211 Canal, I've got one at King's Landing, I've got one at Pierview, I've got one at the Salty Crab. So, and for us, we've always put all of our chairs in a nice single file line, stacks of 4, lock them up against the thing. Never been an issue, but for someone at this point to say you physically have to take and move, I mean, we have paddle boards, booby cats, wave runners, I mean, we do everything. For us to physically, I mean, there's no place for us to go. And really, there's no place to go.
Right, so none of those landowners have any type of storage for you that you could,
Well, even right now with the fence up, you know, for all that, it even where we come in the gate to park,
right?
it takes 25 minutes to walk all the way back around and zigzag through
Due to
the
the
thing.
Margaritaville stuff, you're saying?
Yeah,
Right,
I
okay.
mean, but yeah, I mean, this language has been like this whole entire time.
Hasn't been enforced, it seems, yeah.
Yeah, but for someone like me to go to college and come down here and be doing something, this is all I've done my whole entire life to provide for my family and stuff, just to be like, hey, you have to remove everything now from this property. It's pretty much just saying, you're out of business, you're done. I don't see, I pay a lot of money in sales tax and, you know, like I said, that's a large area of properties there.
Mm-hmm.
May I ask a question? When you apply with the town, or it's a license that you get through the town,
It depends on which one, for wave runners or parasailing or the
the
chairs.
chairs, right? For any of it,
Oh.
what does the town require of you?
Well, until 2-3 years ago, I would turn in a PWVL, which would just be clear the wave runners, site plans, you know, copy of our insurance, stuff like that. And since the whole chair thing started happening, I think I turn in 18 or 20 permits now. Turn in my wave runner permits, three vehicle permits, 5 beach chair permits, 5 mechanical beach raking permits, to get DOT permits from Tallahassee. Rake?
I've seen those permits, sure, but you rake, you're also a raker?
We groom.
Okay.
We groom after we set the chairs up every day, behind the line, yeah. But, so the wave runner permits, and now I have 5 chair permits, vehicle permits, 5 mechanical beach raking permits.
Do you apply for these permits with the town? Does the town provide you with ordinances when you apply for these permits? Are you required to
Always
understand?
in the past, probably the first 15 to 17 years of me being in business, someone would actually come from here and would drop our packet off to us. In the last 3 or 4 years, never seen anybody. Even if we come in here and ask, like, hey, can I get my packet? They have no idea what I'm talking about. They tell you to go online and print it out.
Because what I'm trying to understand is when you apply for these permits, are you required to understand the town's ordinance and DEP and the beach and FW?
Oh, yeah, we
You have been aware that the town ordinance had this verbiage?
had no idea.
No idea.
Not in 22 years.
Had you read the town ordinance?
Yes, ma'am. I mean, I don't know, guys, I wouldn't say I'm younger, but when I first got here, Dave Crabtree was the code enforcement guy. And I remember Dave would come down all the time, and, I mean, he would enforce, you know, you're only allowed to fly country and state flags, for example. And that's all I fly at my places. I put up like a, you know, European, like a German flag, American flag, stuff like that. You look down the beach, everybody's got POW flags and open and parasail flags and all this stuff. I mean, I still just do the flag. I remember Dave Crabtree would come down and be like, oh, you can't have a checker flag, or you can't have the yellow flag. And he would come out of that every 3 months, just do a little site check, and everybody was doing what they were supposed to be doing, and that was it.
Question.
So through all the years, yeah, I mean, for someone to say now, like I said, it took us 2 days just to remove what we use on a daily on a daily premises just to open up our beach properties to customers. It was 2 days just to move the stuff into the parking lot, the Mermaid.
Okay, quick question for you, Jason. What, so what does those permits, just the town-specific ones, what does that cost you on an annual basis, the permitting?
The PWPL and the PAL.
Like total, I mean, so just the town,
Well,
not the DEP or the
I
break-in?
mean, I paid $170 for the first 20 years. That was for the waiver runner license. In the last 2 years, just keeps going up. Vehicle permits are $100 a piece.
The year,
Yep,
per vehicle per year, so it's $300 in your
that's
case.
3. It was 170 for, say, the first 20 years, and in the last 2-3 years, it's 170 plus how many vehicles you have. And then the mechanical beach trekking permits is, I believe, is $25 per strap number, so 125 for me. And first year that they came out in 2020 with the air permits, we going out, but then the property next to you was, like for me, I have 6 conjoining properties. And so we would do it like that. And so it was 100 for there, but like, for example, the beacon would be piggybacked off the cottage, and then like off the pier view, you would have the crab and the one. But now they've separated every out, so you pay for every strap number now. So now for the beach furniture, it's $100 for every single one.
Strap number.
So
You have a
that's
larger
what I'm
operation, so it costs you more, but in general, I mean, $2,000 a year just for permits?
We haven't even got to a local business tax receipts. That's $50 for every single strap number. We have to additionally insure every single. We additionally insure the town of Fort Myers Beach.
Insure through the town of Fort Myers Beach?
We additionally insure every property we're on. So I additionally insure the salty crab.
Is that revenue to the town? No, that's to your agent.
No, but I mean, I'm just saying, you're asking me what I have to do.
I'm just
but
looking for actually
my insurance, that costs me
specifically, what's the
$500.
revenue? What's the revenue that you produce for the, I mean, does the town? What is the town, what is it, yeah, what is the town? I mean, I guess I'm being too specific.
You guys are probably making.
Not me, but not you guys.
It would come off of all of us, sales tax.
Sales tax. That goes to the state, correct, or not? There's a local 1% or 1/4% that goes to the municipality. I'm not a tax expert, but.
That was recently enacted, goes to the.
Right, that's 1/4%, but I mean, the town gets a little piece, right? And then most of it goes to the state. So I guess maybe
What he's asking is, what's your cost?
Yeah.
Permitting.
Yeah, to the
Total
town. I
cost.
me's what's the benefit to the town? I guess is what I'm saying. Not that that's a benefit because they're providing paperwork and services, but I mean, what's the,
What's the town making off of me?
yeah, basically, off of, yeah.
You have to pay for your permits.
Yeah, just permits or, yeah, permits and sales tax is what the primary costs are for.
Yeah, but I mean, like if you looked at like an ice cream shop or something like in Times Square, I mean, what's the town making off of them? I mean, I don't know, I mean. Well, I mean, for example,
Again, more important for the
the
for
one
the
thing with
hotel,
us
yeah.
is, I'm,
The TDC funds is a portion of TDC funds, yes, I think it's 18.5%.
Fort Myers
Sure.
Beach is,
So I'm just saying, it's more than just the permitting, offer more.
Fort Myers Beach is very unique compared if you just went down to Bonita, to Naples, to Marco, and you shot
Oh,
over
yeah.
to the other coast. When you come over that bridge and you see 5 or 6 parasails in the air and ray runners and stuff, I mean, it's kind of like a destination. It's for that. I mean, some people, they like that. Other people may not like that, but
Yeah.
if people don't want to go to Sanibel and not have any action, that's where they go. But Fort Myers Beach is kind of,
Where do you go, on the north end?
I
Yeah.
would say it's not so much about partying, but
I mean, some people take exception to it, you know,
I mean,
fishermen
for
and
example,
things
with
like
us,
that.
for us, because of what we provide, the hotel, for example, with Margaritaville, they could go in and only be a 3-star hotel. and, you know, have their steakhouse and have their bars and stuff. With us, they can become a 4.5, 5-star hotel.
Is your main base of operations at the Wicked Wings Beach Bar? Is that where you guys are?
Sir, at 1160,
Yes, okay. So you're down, where's your main base?
at 1160 Estera, which is behind the Pureview Hotel, which there's,
Okay. So
our main base is like literally right there.
I feel like this is gonna be, like, it feels like it's getting to a situation where we have the wording, it is how it is. Each and every one of these businesses has a very unique property.
I'm the only guy on the whole entire island that is all seawall.
So that's
No way.
so that's kind of the point I'm trying to get to is
And every
that
time the water comes in, or the wind blows 20 on shore, the water comes up to the seawall.
my point is that if there, I feel like because of the gray area right now and because of we're starting to enforcing this, maybe something we can add to the wording is that obviously best case scenario is behind the dunes off the beach, period. That's what the that's what, you know, Turtle Time wants, that's what FWC wants. If we're really trying to work with and not chase off the businesses, what if we worked with property owners and create designated areas so each and every, what it would say is, in your designated area would be the added verbiage. So FWC or whoever could go to each site and say, okay, you got a seawall. You're either gonna have to look into maybe using a parking lot in the area for your nighttime storage, working with them. I'm not saying I'm just using it as an example. Each and every one of these cases is so unique that it's going to be very hard to find wording that's going to work. That's why I'm thinking like in the designated areas that would be designated by, trying to make more work for Chad, but you know, be designated by city officials, by FWC, whoever would need to. Make it so we either have the landowners invest in putting up a new dune, like Pink Shell, where they can hide it behind. I just don't think that, maybe it's not impossible, but it's going to be very hard to find verbiage that's going to work for you and for you guys.
Well, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people seeing different things that are coming with the Margarita bill, but on the ocean side, this side of the coastal protection line, you know, it's going to be mainly a swimming pool, and Canal Street, it's going to be from Canal Street all the way to Beacon. It's going to be a big access now.
How many chairs do you put out a day?
80 setups.
Okay, how many wave runners?
We're allowed 8 per license. That's it.
So, and because of the seawall, if we want them off the beach, we would need to find some type of like a local parking lot that it doesn't allow cars overnight.
That's what I was just gonna say. Option would be with me, with Margaritaville coming in. You know, that's gonna be a big swimming pool. Obviously, there's no place to park a swimming pool, so I would be going up the beach access, right in the heart of Times Square at 5:30, 6 o'clock every night, going across the street, dragging chairs behind tractors. I mean, I believe it was a safety hazard. Even when we had to move everything off the beach the other day because of the storm, we were dragging stuff from Lani Kai's beach access down the highway or down the road, Mermaid. That was the only way we could get.
But if you take the proper safety precautions and not worry about just that extra work and time, because I know you're thinking money and time for your employees and that, but at the end of the day, it's still going to need to adhere to whatever we decide, right?
With the town council. With the town council.
If that,
I just want to let you know my situation. I've been, like I said, I've been there for 22 years, and we're up against a seawall, and we've always just plugged everything up real nice and tight against the seawall.
the fact of the matter is, I think something's going to have to change. Whether it's where you store your stuff or where, I mean, that's just my opinion.
I just hope it's not like, hey.
Is the question, how many of the business owners have or don't have space? Not a question of moving it, it's a question of space.
Because I'm looking at,
Does anybody have store,
Take for example, the license, take for example, the license down right at the pier. The new restaurant, you know, where there's a jet ski license there. So if he had to move his stuff off the beach, he'd have to put his stuff in Times Square overnight. He would have his four-wheeler, his gas, all of his chairs, and everything sitting in Times Square by Dairy Queen all night.
I have a question for you guys, two questions. One, what are you guys gonna do for the hurricane this weekend? You're gonna put your stuff, you're not gonna put it in Times Square, is that allowed, Chad? For them to,
They have a hurricane plan where they, hurricane
Evacuation
action
plan.
yeah, but you have to move
Everybody's
it,
different.
one, and two, could you guys create your own dune, store your stuff behind the dune,
Well, I have a seawall that's not going anywhere.
and put a dune in front of the seawall?
which is narrow there, is I think the
I mean,
the
but-
problem.
I
I
know,
mean, even next door,
But that's-
Crescent Beach Family Park, when they put the park in, they planted all that vegetation out there and they put all of the posts up and stuff. And, you know, it's been 4, 5, 6 years now, and, well, 2011, so it's been 10 years. And none of it's there anymore, just getting beat by the surf, by the surf, by the surf. And now it's growing up, you know, up on the wall, kind of like that area, but there's no vegetation. And they've replanted it 6 or 7 times now.
you can rake a dune, and then plant the dune, that would be better than just putting plants in.
I'm just saying, like, for example, where a spot where I'm from, on a high tide, from the seawall to the high tide's not any farther from the back of that room. So if we plant a dune that comes halfway out, we have to be 15 feet back from the waters. So I have to come 15 feet here. So I guess I'm supposed to operate my business in a 8-foot section.
But in his area,
Very
because
tight.
of the wave action and the narrowness of the beach, it would be difficult now after the renourishment when there's 200 feet and in front of there. That could be a discussion.
I mean, I think that should be part of the ordinance.
There's beach,
That the,
Well, it is, I mean, it is part of the ordinance. So the ordinance says that the beach is unconsolidated material, AKA sand, that extends landward from the water line, the place where there is marked vegetation, a dune, or a seawall building. So to your point, if they did put a dune in front of their storage area in back of there is no longer,
Well, we do have a dune coming down Canal Street. That's grown out about 10 or 15 feet. In Crescent Beach, where they planted their stuff, it's grown out about 10 or 15 feet. On the other side of Salty Crab. So if you take that dune and the dune there, the way the property sets, it goes like this. When we're closed down at night, everything is behind.
the line, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
We don't have a dune up against, like I said, up against the seawall, because the water just laps up and
yeah.
everybody does riprap now. They don't allow just walls anymore.
I mean, I personally struggle with this imaginary line, dune line, because it's really nothing more than a imaginary dune line. And I think the point is that the dune represents a stopping point and a higher spot for a sea turtle to lay its eggs on. And an open beach, whether it's behind where where some vegetation comes out, they're meaningless. They're gonna just continue up landward
what's on the other side of the sea?
until they find suitable, nesting area.
Well, a couple weeks ago was a parking lot and a swimming pool and the Pierview Hotel. But coming up, it's gonna be, take it as like a lazy river. It's literally gonna be, the only thing that's still gonna be, there's a cigar hut because it's a work.
I'm just looking at these sites, I'm like, I see parking lots on that, and I see like areas that, and like this goes back to what I was saying, like each site would be site specific where we would designate their area, whether it's on or off the beach. I mean, I see a lot of these like parking or no overnight parking, and I see little areas that maybe not they're off the beach or not necessarily behind anything, but they're like tucked in between buildings and there's stuff like that. And I'm just seeing like what's being done with that real estate during those times, during nighttime.
Right.
And
Yeah, but then you get into like that, like for example, where I'm at John Richard, that becomes a liability situation when you start wave runners on someone's property and stuff, and kids jump on them, take pictures, fall off, break their leg. I mean,
We don't do that now where it's at?
Yeah.
Yeah, on the beach.
so what's up? That's why we have the insurance and everything for it. We have security cameras.
You got a
But I just wanted to,
okay, thanks, Jason. Yeah.
Thank you.
Jason.
Good.
Eric, if you can come talk to the mic.
Yeah, if you don't
so
mind.
we can pick you up. Thanks, bud.
Ogilvy, 61 Avenue C, the property you were referring to earlier. I myself have operated on water sport industry for over 20 years and have seen a lot of the issues you're referring to. I guess the key line I'd like to refer back to is the manager's discretion, which really apply and can apply to virtually every rental location on the beach, because as you hit the nail on the head, with each location has its own individual scenario. We do our best to apply to the requirements of the turtle ordinance, but each of us would have to do something a little different. In our case, it was always, and being well aware of the verbiage there, it was always all your equipment as close together as possible, up next to each other, and that way, if there is a crawl, there's no place for it to go get stuck, you know. And, it's obviously a little different for the south end of the island, but they've had systems in place that they felt would best deal with that issue and the risk to the turtles at minimal risk. North end of the island, like he was saying, virtually impossible to put a dune there unless you plan to renourish the beach every years, because nothing stays there with the storms and the surges that you get and the wave action that occurs by the pier. But again, it's just about going and seeing what everybody's doing, and everybody's doing the best to ensure the minimal effect. And any effects that you've seen over the years per location can certainly be dealt with individually to ensure that it doesn't occur. Trying to make a blanket order for everybody, unless you're going to shut everybody down, it's not possible. And really, if you go back and review the instances that you've had, I'm certain that you can probably come up with solutions on a point-by-point basis.
That was a question about no crawls. Why are there no crawls from like the Lani Kai all the way to past Times Square?
Scared of Lani Kai.
Sand.
It's loud. They're scared of Lani Kai. It's loud. It's
yeah, they
lighting.
got music blaring until 2 o'clock in the morning,
They don't like it.
strobe lights going off.
So,
There's false crawls there occasionally, but
Yeah, it's- you know, and that's one of the, I think one of the problems now too, is we've got, you know, the development's increasing. There is more people, let's face it. I mean, the business this summer was unhinged. I mean, we were still waiting in traffic in July.
right.
I mean, I mean, you know, it depends on, it's a problem whether they're customers or not, but the intensity on the beach is much harder, which really means that as stewards, I mean, again, to follow the law, something has to be done to protect these beaches. And I think, you know, you had mentioned earlier, you saw the statistics on the false crawls. The nesting success is down in the 30s, which is a pretty big reduction. And that can be due to, you know, a lot of people on the beach at night, I think, is contributing. Lighting, which is a perennial issue on this beach. A lot of things that will prevent them from finding a suitable. I mean, a false crawl should be defined as they come on land and they find it's not suitable for them and they leave. So for whatever reason, they leave. So the question is that sort of that results in habitat loss, and that they have no place to go. And so they'll turn around and they'll either try again, or they'll just board all those eggs out in the water. The beach is the number one asset for this town. Let's face it, without that beach, this place wouldn't be a town. I mean, you wouldn't have people coming here. I mean, again, there's amenities that they can enjoy while they're here, but the reason they come here is the beach. And I think it's important that we protect the beach. And, you know, in the end, I think this hazy area of enforcement is the reason we're here, and we now are the responsible people to try to make decisions and recommendations. When it hopefully, you know, could have potentially been taken care of earlier. And again, I think who's not represented here are the landowners who allow you to run their businesses on their properties, and what they can contribute to the success of your business Because we're appointed by the town council. I mean, Sharon, you were on the Murphy, you had said, and I think that time there's more rakers on there. I think Bill Perry was on there, and Eve was on there, and, again, the fact that they didn't enforcement is why we're all here today. So if we continue with this gray area, I see it as being a bigger issue, but also that we have to put the onus somewhat on the landowners if they actually do value your services and to the town, and to their customers, and again, whatever financial arrangements you have with them. I just keep thinking of that Pink Shell property and just how elegant solution that is. I mean, all it takes is a frontal dune. It's a problem here. That's one of the reasons we have erosion here, is because we don't have frontal dunes. And again, if we're going to invest in this beach long term, we have to start thinking of those types of things to protect the beach so it's not being eroded constantly. I can tell you the FWC actually has a say in whether or not our beaches receive state money for funding renourishments, because that's where the money comes from. If they find that it's not suitable habitat for turtle nesting, they won't fund the project. It's as simple as that. So really, I mean, from a long-term perspective, we all have, investment in this beach and finding a good solution. And again, who's missing here, I think, are the landowners that can potentially help solve those problems. I mean, in your case, Ginger, if the Wyndham allowed you to, basically put in a frontal dune, everything can go right behind it. Come on up, and it would be, perfect, or one of the other condos.
Right, so I hear you, I hear what you're saying. I want to just jump back real quick to something that you said that was interesting. I think Sharon may have a little better background info that if I don't explain this right, but we've been here for 30 years too. I just turned 50, started when I was 20. It was actually my husband, and I came in and worked with him. All of this time, it wasn't, you're saying it wasn't enforced, but what happened, the way beach was defined as far as raking, I'm going to tell that part, yeah.
That's the piece of the puzzle that's being left out. Sharon Faircloth again. And I know Chad and I have talked about this a little bit, but the piece of the puzzle that's left out here that keeps getting passed over is how the beach was defined. And how it was defined in the Fort Myers Beach Land Development Code, Chapter 14, Article 1, Beach and Dune Management, and Article 2, Sea Turtle Conservation. This is basically what has just been rewritten, is the sea turtle conservation part. Okay? So in the Article 1, there's definitions. So like the PWVL ordinance that was written later, the beach chair ordinance that was written later, all these ordinances that we're talking about, where you could store your equipment, where you could do this, where you could do that. Every time the town asks us for a site plan and we give them a site plan of where we're going to be and they issue us a license, where we have shown them where we're going to be storing things at night, okay? Everything has been centered around the definition of beach. So I remember in Marine Resources Task Force, when it took a long time to pass that ordinance, one of the big conversations was, okay, if you have a beach, where does the beach end? For instance, there's places on Fort Myers Beach right now, there's cottages where there's no dune in front of it, and the sand goes underneath the cottage, and in fact goes back to 2 or 3 cottages. So all those cottages are now in violation of this ordinance. All of them. Because it's a man-made structure that's in the sand, and there's nothing in front of it that's making a sea turtle stop. There's a lot of things, rope and bollard system that protects all the dunes right now that's in front of Lynn Hall Park and everywhere else. Well, what if the turtle hits that post in front of a dune? It's illegal right now. Trash cans that the town has up. The posts with the can on it, I don't care how high the can is, the post is illegal. It's man-made, and it's in front of a dune. But what are you going to tell the homeowners that have a piling home, and the sand, there's no dune in front of them, and the sand comes all the way up? Today, they're illegal today. I know you say, tell them just to plant a dune, but what if the property owner on their private property doesn't want to plant a dune? Everyone has their own reasons, it's their property. So, right now, everything like that is illegal. The point I'm trying to make is our definitions in the old chapter 14. First one is beach. Not the first one, but it's one of them. It says the sand along the Gulf of Mexico that extends landward from the mean low water line to the place where there's a marked change in material or physiographic form, or to the line of permanent vegetation, the limit of storm waves. I know you guys have all read this and you know it. And then this is where the whole, where you can define the beach came from. And this is where the imaginary line, this didn't just come out of vendors' heads to make it easy for them to store equipment. There's a second definition called seaward line of vegetation. Means the location closest to the mean high water line containing or suitable for dune vegetation. Again, this is the seaward line. There is no such vegetation upon a parcel or portion of a parcel. It will encompass a line along shore projected from the closest areas on each side where such vegetation exists. That's the definition. Basically saying, if there's no dune, there's dunes on either side, the line in between them, and behind that is not the beach. If you have that as your reference and you read all these ordinances saying you have to be off the beach at night, the vendors who put their equipment behind, if you don't have a sand dune on your property, and there's a dune here and a dune here, and the town person from the town, the old Chads from back then, come to your property and say, if you're behind the dune line, the seaward line of vegetation, then you're in compliance. That's what we've been doing. Okay, so we have not been out of compliance. It's not been an enforcement issue. We have not been out of compliance, so that's why there's not been an enforcement issue. Right now, today, this isn't an enforcement issue. All of this was rewritten. This is what you have, the sea turtle, the new ordinance, the beach furniture and obstruction, that's all new language. That's not what was in the old ordinance.
So you're saying this was accurate up to 2020?
To my knowledge, I don't know if this is still in the current beach land development code or not. I asked Chad, but I never got a response.
So, yeah, chapter 14's been crossed.
I'm just letting you know where it came from. All these other ordinances that were based on the definition of the word beach. Okay?
I think what's applicable here is turtle nesting habitat.
That's what is being talked about today. But
Correct.
what you keep saying is that this is an enforcement issue and that all the vendors have been out of compliance this whole time, and now you're making us in compliance, but that's not true. We have not been out of compliance the whole time because of that definition of beach. That's what has been changed. Now it's the sea turtle nesting habitat. It's no longer the beach as it used to be defined. That changed. Now it's sea turtle nesting habitat, which is all the sand. There isn't a part of the sand that any vendors can delineate, like, okay, we're off the beach because we're behind this seaward line of dune vegetation. So here's an area where we're not officially on the beach, but we're still in the sand, but we're not on the beach. Okay? There had to be some kind of way to delineate because, like everyone keeps saying, every single property on this island is completely different. Some of them have like zero beach, some have huge beaches. That's where the numbers came from, like the 200 feet back. That wasn't just an arbitrary number that was pulled out of the sky. There's a lot of discussion about that number. How far back would be a pretty safe bet that a turtle won't go that far, that someone could store equipment there. And that this isn't just things that people that just...
With all due respect, there's nothing scientific about 200 feet.
I'm not saying, I'm just saying it was a lot of discussion a long time ago to come up with that number. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just something that someone just decided, hey, let's pick 200 feet out of the air. I'm putting it out there for you. I just think it's important for all of you to understand that, since the beach was defined in a certain way in all the ordinances prior to right now, when it was changed without any of us knowing it was getting changed, we were not in violation. Okay, we were in compliance. And now all of a sudden, yes, we're out of compliance because of...
but technically what you're saying, is that if there was a dune in Lynn Hall Park and not another one until you get down to Hercules, that you can make this imaginary line from Hercules all the way up to Lynn Hall Park and say, okay, if you're behind that, then that's okay.
I wouldn't make that, but according to this definition,
right,
that's how it was done, yes.
Okay, well, but that certainly doesn't make sense.
It depends. Every property is different. Most properties are, A lot of properties do have something on either side, and the ones that didn't, that's the one where they had the other, you could go to the seawall, or you can be 200 feet back. That's what I'm saying. Every property is different. That's why there's so many different ways of, defining or putting in for each individual property. There had to be something a little bit different for each property. Again, I don't know if any of you own a business, but if you owned a business and you had to take everything you owned and put it in a different place, it took you 4 hours or 5 hours every time before you could open or close your business, it just puts you out of business. So that's what's happening here.
Technically, you own the space that you're operating on, though. I mean,
We don't own the space we're operating on.
correct, and that's maybe my point, yeah.
One thing our committee and the town council is trying to encourage a dune from the north end to the south end.
Of course.
So saying you don't have a dune is, we want a dune. Okay? So we want dunes continuously all the way down. It will help with renourishment programs in the future. There's plans of several things going on. There was a renourishment program where they encouraged financially on the north end to put dunes in. So we want a dune.
Mm-hmm.
So not having a dune is not an excuse for us.
Gotcha. I understand. But my point is that we have not been in violation this whole time, and the vendors are not saying, we're mad because you're making us be compliant. And that we were not in violation until this ordinance changed. We just would like for you to open it back up, to have more discussion with town council, so that maybe there can be something, a stipulation put in there for properties that don't have any place else to store, and there's not an option for a dune, or the property owner, who's ultimately in charge, doesn't wish to do a dune. I think that the ordinance, that's what we're asking today, be opened back up for more tweaking to make it, again, something that, the community is working, we are working all together to try to make it where everyone can make their business work and make this work in a natural way.
I think you don't understand that what we're saying is that this furniture should not be on the beach there. I empathize. I certainly don't want you to go out of business, but we have no power to change the verbiage that is in this ordinance, because it is what's necessary to comply. Now, what you're saying is you want us to come up with some way that you can have exceptions. And I don't know that that's our responsibility. That should be your responsibility, and the businesses whom you service come up with a solution for you to be able
But in order
to
for us
enhance
to come up
their
with a
businesses.
solution, and the
But
ordinance
our
right now is very cut
responsibility
and
is
dry.
to the beach.
I understand.
And
Yeah.
although we empathize, I don't think we have the power to do what you are asking us to do.
And I think the point is that puts the town at risk. I mean, that's their town then is liable for for any problems that occur, because they're the ones that are making the concessions.
Can I just clarify a quick point? So to Ms. Sharon's point, and Councilman Adderhalt's question to me, does it matter if it's the old ordinance or the new ordinance? Are those photos that you showed us in violation? And I did say yes. So, if a turtle is running into a PWC, it is in violation of that previous ordinance. It is disturbing that sea turtle. So that was my point, not
I'm
necessarily
talking
the
about
point.
storage and,
I understand, but I just wanted to clarify why I was saying that it would have been a violation, old or new ordinance.
Oh, I got you.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
I know that we're talking, I understand that your number one is a dune, all the way up and down the beach. But in the examples I gave you, there are other solutions as well, and other, that are accepted in other ordinances, including, Chad, the boxes, putting them on an angle. We've discussed all of this. These are all options that we've been discussing, but it sounds like you would prefer just to do a dune only. What I'm asking is that this gets opened back up, and we get to have some more input, because there are other solutions beside a dune. I'm not a property owner, and I'm not going to say if I would plant a dune if it were my property or not. That's not my job. So I benefit in no way to give my opinion one way or another. But I do know that a dune is not the only way to decrease or minimize interruptions for the sea turtle nesting. And if you'll read through those things, I've done some of the research. I'm sure you're interested and will do more. But when you have, I don't have the numbers with me, but one of the owners of the condos sent me, he figured up the linear length of the beach and figured up what percentage my equipment, so our section down there on the south end, takes up of that linear frontage of the beach, and it was like 0.00375%. Very small obstruction area from our things. So what do? We say, okay, how can we make it less than what it is now? We want to do better. We want to do better. So if our box is 8 feet long, and taking that box and driving it to the Wyndham and at the parking lot on the tennis courts out there every night, not reasonable. I mean, for this storm, you asked what we would do. It's going to take us a long time. We're going to take every piece of equipment. For a tropical storm, we put them all on upper ground, back in those parking lots. If it's a hurricane, we have an evacuation plan where they go all the way off the island. But to do what we're getting ready to do, to evacuate our equipment and bring it back, like Jason said, it can take days. We're already, anything that's not 100% necessary is gone. We're already doing that today, and what is it, Wednesday? So things like turning those boxes instead of 8 feet across, let's turn them and make them 2 feet across at an angle. Let's decrease the possible false crawls. But we don't have to be all or nothing, and I think that in the dune management where you want to incentivize property owners to plant these dunes, there's a difference in incentivizing them and saying, I mean, it's not a threat, but it's kind of like, this isn't incentivizing them. This is sort of saying, hey, we want all or nothing. We're not willing to say, do the best that you can, turn those boxes, the wave runners, if they're an entrapment issue and they're, let's say it's 10 feet across and the entrapment issue is between where we have them as close as possible, then FWC is fine with storage boxes in the past and for other counties and cities. It's in their ordinance. They've said in the past they're fine with it. That's all in the stuff that I gave you as well. So why can't we take something 3 feet tall, put it across the front of the skis, angle them how you want them. If Mama Turtle runs in, she's gonna follow it down and continue going. But what I'm not hearing from you is that you're sort of like, we want dunes, that's the best, that's it. What we're asking is, because we didn't get to have input, the property owners that you're talking about, they know nothing of this. They knew nothing of it because it was passed when, from first reading to second reading, that was added in. No property owner knew, nor did they have an opportunity to come forth. Hey, maybe some of them will say, I don't mind planting dunes. Some of them will. Some of those people that have been there forever, they're going to fight it to the end because all they see is, I want the big sandy beach. That's what my condo has. And again, my opinion is I'm the vendor. That's the owner of the property.
Sure,
You're going to
absolutely.
have arguments either way. Some are going to come to it, some are not. But there are other options. And all we're asking, really it's the council who we want, or who we're asking this to. And even, I know Sharon spoke to Ray already. He said he thinks we should be heard. And it's more than just in this forum. It needs to be done so that all of these people that it affects, from homeowners to business owners to restaurants, all of them, they do need to know and they do need to speak up, come up with some ideas, hopefully tweak it a little bit so that we live in a happy town that is good for the turtles, but is not completely business unfriendly. So that's what's missing, excuse me, that's what's missing in the conversation is we want dunes, that's it. And it's not, it doesn't have to be that way.
Which one of these is the closest to what you would like ours to be? The ones that you gave
Well,
us.
I know when we started, Bonita was the first one I saw. They used the imaginary line, just like we did. That's not, I think FWC said, they don't really think that works. Chad doesn't. I get that at this point. The ones that I think make more sense are, if it's a wide beach, honestly, pushing them 700 feet back to a seawall. I mean, that turtle nest that we had behind Sunset was the first I have ever seen on that wide part of the beach. I don't think it had any eggs in it, because I noticed they removed that a couple days ago, and they dug down and there was nothing in there. But at any rate, pushing them back.
They're dead. No, I mean, there was a nest there.
There were? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I just know that they said they went down in, appeared not to find anything. But regardless, pushing them back to the seawall might be enough in a lot of areas. Putting them behind a dune in some areas where it's doable, I don't have a problem with that, but again, not my property. Putting those storage boxes flat to the ground so that the turtle cannot get entrapped. That makes sense. That makes sense to me that we're concerned about the entrapment in between the skis. I get that. Never, Eve was always like, this is acceptable. All these years in the past. So if she's not now, and I can see some of the reasoning, what about putting something in front of them so it's no longer an entrapment issue? So that's just a couple of things. Turning the boxes this way, turning them this way. They do it in other places, and a lot of other places don't do anything and don't refer to beach furniture whatsoever. Not that that means we want Fort Myers Beach to be, to compare ourselves to someone who's maybe not as environmentally friendly, but I'm just saying there are a lot of options, and we're kind of just trying to be black and white.
Yes, I believe that these are really some of the exceptions. I think most of the research I did, everybody has basically, I mean, anybody certainly has adopted the Florida model ordinance.
Well, the model ordinance doesn't include this obstruction part.
You actually have a good point there. You're right.
I studied that, and a lot of, even in the model ordinance that our town looked at when this ordinance was written, a lot of that language was repealed from what I understand. So even in what the state model was, I've been told that a lot of that got taken out. That they said, no, that's too much. So, and it was a lighting ordinance. That model says nothing about beach obstructions. This is something
Right, you have to find
additional.
It. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
That
You have
has
to look
not
for it.
been made clear by anyone that I've seen so far.
Did actually was remiss here in reading into a couple quick things into the record here. One was a letter from Wind and Water Sports, not represented here, correct? Bob Ramadan. I mean, do I need to?
I think he sent that for y'all. If
Okay.
you want to read it for the public, that's up to you.
Okay, well, I guess that's probably okay. And then Eve also sent one here as
I
well.
believe he also sent that to the council as well.
He did, okay, so I won't bother. Sure, I'd be happy to. It's actually a lot shorter. Basically, it was addressed to the members of the Marine Resource Task Force. It starts, it has been well documented that beach furniture and other beach items such as cabanas, tents, boats, jet skis, etc. can be an obstruction to and entangle sea turtles seeking nesting sites, thereby significantly impairing essential behavioral patterns. That could be considered a take under the Marine Turtle Protection Act, Florida Chapter 3792431. States that you may not knowingly cause harm to a marine turtle. The same applies under the Endangered Species Act of 1973. While the FWC Commission provides guidelines, it is up to local government to implement sea turtle protection. The state and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service will respond if actual harm to sea turtles occurs because of ineffective regulations. Therefore, if take of a sea turtle were to occur as a result of an activity authorized under a town ordinance, the town of Fort Myers Beach and the property owner could be held liable under the Endangered Species Act and the Marine Turtle Protection Act. Turtle Time supports Chad's interpretation of the code as it is currently written, that is, removal of all furniture from the beach by 9 p.m. We suggest that businesses work with the town and their location host to determine options for storing the recreational equipment to come into compliance with the code. Establishment of a dune system will ameliorate the issue of where to conveniently store beach equipment. Effectively, Eve Haverfield. That was her input. Anything else?
I think it comes down to that whether it's something that's always been there and we're just now doing it, like we kind of said, or even though, besides the point on that, the fact of the matter is, it's getting harder and harder for the turtles. It's getting so hard for the turtles to be on the island, to have their babies, because of what we are doing. And whether or not we change it for the betterment of the turtles, or whether we change it for the betterment of you guys, or find an in between, there has to be a change in some way. And I honestly, like, aside from the nature standpoint of it, I do think we let down the town not being able to have you guys involved in the discussion in the first place. That's my own personal opinion on that, because I think if it affects someone, they should have a say in it. When it comes down to the turtles, though, I really am getting worried about what the types of things we're seeing with the nests lately, the lack of nests in certain areas, and got to be aware of what we're doing and look into the future of, like, okay, if we need a change for what's happening, and we also have to be able to not just say, you're not doing this right, but we have to give a constructive solution that will work without running away businesses. I think that's a weight on the city's shoulders.
I also think it's important that businesses understand it's also their responsibility to understand where the town is going.
Yeah.
In regards to sea turtle ordinances. I believe it's they're running their businesses in a wildlife habitat. They should be continuously making themselves aware of what's going on in town.
Making the changes to go along with it.
Correct.
What about the permitting office's part in this? These people go through a lot of paperwork applying for their permits. Does the permitting office ever actually consider the area of the beach where these proposed businesses are being set up? And don't they have a responsibility to say, gosh, that beach is pretty narrow and there's nothing behind and it doesn't look like it's going to work as a business entity because you can't address the concerns and the needs of having obstructions removed on a daily basis. So it seems to me that permitting has some sort of a role in this.
I believe you have to have a Florida DEP permit as well.
Do you have that?
But they consider raking as dragging up. Not rake with a plastic rake, you still,
Drake, yeah, I was aware of that.
You don't need it to have your equipment on the beach in the day?
Is there anything preventing you from finding a new landowner that can accommodate your other requirements?
That qualify. There are all kinds. So if there were other properties that qualified, that's not being qualified. One of them being businesses have track record and gets forgotten as well. We are very highly regulated by FWC, by our insurance, by our properties. I mean, out the yin yang, and that's okay. That's the business that we're in. I think and the town has a lot of things. The ordinance are primarily aircraft. They were made by, there used to be 22 or more, maybe some jet ski rentals all over, and it was like, whoa, that's not safe. It was 7 mile long. We have a lot of things to protect people and safety. So over the past 20, on from 30 vendors to where the cap was set for safety. So we've many great things that it's not like we're going backwards. We've gone forwards with, you know, less rentals, less, and you've got a lot of vendors that have been process, you know, the ordinance, and we're not uninvolved in it. Most of us can't. Anyway, I watched the second of, and I think I was working out. I didn't look at. I looked at the package. I would have seen. I listened to all the public comment. I didn't know. I had no idea. So it's not that I'm not doing my city, but most of these vendors. That's where problems. They don't know. Like the ordinance. Not that we're not involved, and we didn't worry about. It was always on off that back or the imaginary line. The beachfront has been being. Would have understood that beach was fine the way it always had been, and to us, have said, "Whoa, wait, we need to tweet more about it." We talked a lot about storage and meetings about that, but enter my mind that I was out of compliance, or I would have said, "Hey, we're right." It shouldn't be. So it's just want to put a little more positive spin on it. People love sea turtles. I do want to do better, but the only solution is not doing. And I know it's a good one.
Aside from what your companies do, is there, well, aside from what your companies do that is mandated by the city, you guys do anything to help the environment or to help the sea turtles outside of what you're required?
I had trash cans. And we had trash cans from those Strauss, what are top of Mass, all the way down the Lani Kai, about 12 of them, perfect line, and change them 2 or 3 times a day. I did it on my own expense every day. I'd send 3 or 4 of my guys one way, another 3, 5-gallon bucket, and said, "Hey, pick up every cigarette, pick up every ball, like every day." I mean, I don't want to. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it to the best I can. Always been.
Take a break or just go?
Oh, you need a break?
Take a break?
Yeah, just come, if you can come in and talk at the mic now that I moved it.
Oh, we can't.
I'll be
Yeah,
quick.
We got one more guy here. Yeah, go ahead, if you wanna take a break, go ahead. We're gonna let-
Speaker?
We have can you wait
Okay,
1
yeah,
minute?
let's listen to him and then.
If you can just talk by the mic, please, thank you.
Hello, thank you for your time, and I just also want to add something as a positive spin. My name's Matthew Pluskovic. I operate Banana Boat Tours and Rides out of the Junkanoo property, one of Mr. Terry Prasad's properties. My girlfriend and I, we take tremendous pride in taking care of the beach, breaking, cleaning, filling in the holes. Morning, very few times, quite often throughout the week, favor in passing, filling in a hole left by one of our many visitors. Certainly like to thank the leaders of my community in particular. They've set an excellent example of how we'd like to conduct our business, go and establish something meaningful and anybody's time. Efforts remarkable as to where, given the opportunity, language, working a compromise. everything taught me over the years.
Thank you, Matthew.
I was wondering, since it takes a long time to create a dune, not like an overnight solution, can they do something like temporary fencing around their,
That's an obstruction as well.
Yeah, and technically you can make a dune over. You can chip in sand and,
okay,
yeah, I mean, we're working on that ordinance too.
Do we have to take action on this today, Steve, do you think?
Sure, I mean, there's no
Yeah.
reason why we can't, put together a recommendation to, the town council, I think. Unless you feel like you'd like to research it more, but,
Oh, yeah. Along
okay,
those
did you
lines.
wanna, you wanna take a break?
Yeah, I need a fast break, excuse me.
Yeah, we're gonna break, Chad, for like 5 minutes, you mind?
Okay, yeah, no worries.
So, what's that,
Take a break.
whatever, add 5 minutes to that.
Just so everyone's aware, the mics are still on and everything's still being broadcast, so.
That's right.
No cursing, Wendy.
Hot mic,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah.
On the record.
It looks like it's a marathon session, we're in subject one.
We gotta cut off a few more things off the agenda.
All there for a reason.
Yeah.
Bird nesting will be quick, and then there's really only one more, I think, so.
How do I get something added to the agenda?
You
Seaward
just,
line.
email Chad, and say, hey, let's add something, and he'll let me know or whatever.
Here, I brought it up the past couple times. I thought that was how to add it, but I'll do it. I'll do an official.
Yeah, I
email.
actually had, I had a note there, but actually,
The definition of beach.
you just keep knocking stuff off. I mean, and then stuff like this also just goes up. Sure.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
I was out in the water this morning.
How was it?
Good.
Were you in Back Bay or out?
Back Bay.
Okay. Anything interesting?
No turtles, no manatees, no dolphins. That was just nothing. The water is a little bit clear. I think you got about maybe 3-foot visibility.
Yeah.
I don't think with the tannins coming off the rivers, it's ever gonna get much better.
Well, I was just in the meeting with, it was like a luncheon with DeSantis and the Army Corps of Engineers and Captains for Clean Water over at Pink Shell. And they were talking about what their plans are. And he just keeps scooting around, sending the water south. Now he's in the finger at the Seminole tribe, and they don't want the water south. And
Well, interesting. I had dinner with somebody who's been coming here for 50 years.
yeah,
I said, is the water was it any clearer 50 years ago? He goes, no.
really?
No. I mean, you hear people, the old timers saying, oh, it was crystal clear. And
Yeah, I've heard that.
he said, no. No, it wasn't. 50 years ago, no.
Even in the, well, has he only been coming in the summer though? Because summers it gets tannin, the tannins really tie it.
They have a property. I don't know
Oh,
when.
okay. But I was gonna say, in the winter, when it's dry season, it is a big difference, but,
It's clearer now than it has been.
yeah.
And we took the boat down
so
to
we'll have to decide something.
the dome houses and then stopped at some shelling along the way. Naples, Marco, the water was relatively clear. South of Marco, it got dirty again
Yeah.
because of the Everglades. So I don't think the water was ever truly clear.
Oh,
Not in our bay.
yeah.
Michael, I already had Michael.
Apache, you can see the mud.
Well, I've seen pictures prior 1930s when they first started dredging the Caloosahatchee after they blew up Lake Flirt. And it's clear, like white sandy bottoms, crystal clear, green grass and stuff. I mean, and it was being spring fed out here. I think that's when it was clear. But ever since they dredged and opened up that can of worms, it's done.
The
What's the definition
less
of
fresh
a
water
half of
going
a
down the
dune?
Caloosahatchee, then people are complaining it's getting
There's
saltier
no-
further up. Yeah,
maximum per se.
and that's the natural thing.
It could be 6 inches and you've got to
All the
do,
way up to LaBelle. Yeah, now it just goes right up to, Franklin.
okay.
So
Just to give you an idea.
recent natural versus long-term natural is two different things.
Big difference.
Language purposely flagrantly,
There's an area.
but not limited.
How long it takes. That's been about 2 years now.
Spring Shell is pretty high. The north end.
Yeah, but they were, I mean, that.
Just thinking by definition, they could rake a 6-inch dune every day and put
Yeah,
their
I'm getting
stuff
some
behind
emails
it.
here. We'll
By
check with
definition.
Benita, they do not use
what do you mean by
imaginary
rake it?
dune line.
Well, they were saying you can rake a dune.
I think he was saying you could bring in sand and build a dune.
Okay,
Like around a dune, but you can't rake a dune.
okay.
I was thinking the same thing, Rose, with the, put something there, but I'm like, but then there's more stuff on the beach. That's, because I was thinking that too, like some kind of permanent barrier or something, but that's,
Ready, guys?
Yeah, we gotta keep moving this along, so. All right, so.
Call us back to order, huh?
All right, back to order. All right, so let's put together a recommendation to the council.
I would like to recommend that we add dune language, a beach furniture, encouragement of dune development.
I think that we should recommend that the ordinance be accepted the way it is, intact, but that the council would authorize, exceptions that would allow these people to stay in business until each of them can come up with a long-term solution. Or perhaps it would just be until the next licensing or whatever. But as we've said, each of these businesses has a different problem and perhaps a different solution. And I don't think we can come up with those solutions, but if any of them can, then they deserve to stay in business. The way to allow that, I don't think we can change the ordinance. I think the verbiage of the ordinance has to be what it is. That's why we accepted it that way. But I do think that we can allow for the council to work with any of these businesses that see if they can come up with a solution that will allow them to continue in operation.
But I would think that the property owners would want
But there must
those
be a long-term
amenities.
solution. Like,
Those
I don't
property
think it should
owners-
be another 20 years.
Those property owners, I would assume, would want these businesses to stay in
course.
business and would want these amenities for our
Right.
visitors and for our community. So I would
we need their
encourage that the
cooperation.
businesses work very hard to satisfy these businesses so they can stay on their property.
I don't know if the time frame would work. My understanding is they need to be permitted soon, Chad? In the next couple of weeks, is that it? Do we have a month? We might have a month. I don't know if that's sufficient time, but I don't think the ordinance should be changed. I think it's a good ordinance, and I think it's something we should work toward.
I just wrote down, that I think, that on the advice of the town attorney, that we support the advice of the town attorney, that any deviation of the sea turtle ordinance made to accommodate the beach vendors would place a liability and risk of compliance or non-compliance in the town of Fort Myers Beach.
And if the town is willing to accept that,
I mean, again, that's just meaning changing the language is what that means, I guess, is what I wrote, right?
okay, would you read that again then, please, Steve?
That we support the advice of the town attorney, that any deviation of the sea turtle ordinance made to accommodate beach vendors would place the liability and risk of non-compliance on the town of Fort Myers Beach. This really just reinforces what he said at the town council meeting.
Yeah, I think we have to accept the man's opinion since,
Well, I mean, that's our job too,
Right.
as a town, as a council-appointed group here for, the Marine Resources, Task Force. I think that's part and parcel of what we're supposed to be here doing. I want to remind everybody also, it's not our decision, it's the town council's decision. I think you're all very much aware of that. No, I just think that, I take a little harder line, I guess, maybe than the other people. I just, this, with the water quality issues, with the development, at the break, I checked actually on Bonita, by the way, they don't use imaginary line, Ginger, but I mean,
Not right from the their ordinance.
maybe it was dated, I don't know, but we'll checked with a person over there, so,
Well, that's what's on the update
Okay, we'll-
Municode.
we'll check that.
That's the place I would have gotten.
But I think we're more the exception than the rule on the way we manage it. Again, it's, we're part of the environmental task force, right? So it's about the environment here. So, is there, I feel like, I've been in business for 30 years myself, that you somehow have to reinvent your business a little bit, to try to accommodate the rules. And that's the point, is it's the state law. And what was done 30 years ago, we don't do anything like the way we did things 30 years ago anymore, anywhere, for the most part. So things evolve, and it needs change, and requirements change as well. So how do you as business people, change to accommodate this as best you can, but also to Mary Rose's point, do you need time to do it? Again, that's not our position to say, but I think the town will have been better off by enforcing the code, and the environmental aspect of the town, and the sea turtles bring in a lot of guests too, especially during turtle season. Obviously this doesn't apply during high season when the majority of our guests used to arrive. As I had mentioned also, that the impact on the town's resources are considerably more during the summer than they used to be. So how do we offset that and still keep things as like they were 30 years ago? And the other thing, if you look at how many turtles were nesting 30 years ago, 5 turtles on the entire beach. So things have grown up to, last year was 130. This year's going to be a real bad one for the, I looked up the statistics. It's not going to be a good one for the beach. But, back in 2007, there were 8 nests. There were more in previous years, 30 in 2003, but in general, it's been successful moving, the turtles are doing better on our beach. I will say that. But again, the impact seems to be, since this pandemic, that the summers are going to be a little more crazy. So my job is to advise, I feel like our jobs are to advise what's the best thing for the marine resources of the town of Fort Myers Beach. And again, I've been in business for 30 years. I understand it. I told you I'm a card-carrying capitalist. It's not about regulations. I'm not a huge fan of regulations either. But in this particular case, I think there's a means to an end. So I just take a harder line on it. And I think that the onus is not on the community, on the taxpayers, on the town. The responsibility falls on the beach landowners and the business, because beach is a public asset. Now it's private, obviously, for property owners, but it's also regulated by the state and by the federal government on sea turtle nesting. So. So it's an asset that you're allowed to conduct your business on at your personal benefits, and as a result of that, the risk is in your hands, really, as to how you're going to try to be able to manage through it. But again, that's not to say that the town can't contribute to with time or with. I'm not sure how the town can contribute to it. I mean, it's not our responsibility to try to come up with a solution, to try to reinvent how to do water sports on a beach. But again, I mean, as I look through it, and I have spent time on it because I did watch the public or the town council meeting. That again, this compromise with landowners to somehow accommodate them, whether it's off the beach or on the beach. If they're benefiting from having you on that beach by providing amenity for their guests, because primarily it's with hotels. And again, the financial rewards that they're receiving from you conducting business on their property, they have a stake in this game. So what can they do to help you? Whether it's where you can store your stuff or, again, putting in a dune, a frontal dune that you can simply tuck behind, because that will prevent the turtles from going into your property. This council is also working, this advisory board's working on a managed beach zone, or actually a frontal dune program where we don't give the landowner, take away the ability for them to manage the dune. That's one of the reasons people don't want dunes, because once they start, they have no ability to reduce them, to cut them down, to reduce the size of them. They're just allowed to continue to grow without any opportunity to change them. And I think it's been on our agenda is to change that, where there's regulations that allow you to say, okay, it can be this far. If it's too high, you can top it. You can rake up to 2 feet to it instead of 10 feet, those types of things to encourage people to do that. So again, I think in keeping with what we're trying to do here, again, in my opinion, I'm taking a little bit of a harder line on it. That's my position. So it looks like in writing, I'm not sure, but so Andy, do you have any input, or anybody else can talk?
I agree that, sorry it may affect your businesses, but we're kind of handcuffed by the state to make these types of ordinances. And, putting up a 2-foot box or a 2-foot dune, I'd rather see the dune. I think there's lots of solutions, but I think natural environmental solutions are the best, not boxes or turning structures 90 degrees so that they're like this, and so the turtles are deflected like a ping pong ball. I think just a natural obstruction, a dune, is much better than a man-made structure. It looks better on the beach too.
I agree with you, Dr. Fossum. I think the dune, a natural dune, would not only better for our environment, for birds, and also be able to house your bears and sea dunes behind. I agree.
Ultimately, it would protect your own equipment. If you're behind a sand dune, a storm comes in, you're more protected.
You ready for a motion?
It's always impossible to try to do these because we have to get the wording down and then vote on it, right?
Well, I'm just going to move that we, the Marine Resources Task Force, recommend to the town council the adoption of the new sea turtle ordinance number 21-03 as written. We need anything else on that?
Guess I can write it down.
Well, is that what we do? Do we want any qualifiers on there?
How can we help? How can we?
You have to be
How
careful.
can we help them? I mean, let's face
Right.
it.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Like, I agree with the dunes. Like, the dunes are the way to go, 100%. But if it wasn't for what's happening in the environment, like, okay, we put dunes to help you guys. That pushes the turtles that much closer to these rising seas. Seas are coming up closer and closer. We have those awesome dunes at Pink Shell, but when ETA came through, it took off half of them. And if there were sea turtle nests there, that they would have been washed out. So dunes are great when they're placed naturally in a place where they're not going to get washed out so quickly, and they would be beneficial for everybody that has the space for them. And that's why I come back to to really make it so everyone is happy. It's going to have to be a case by case basis, which takes more manpower and time and everything. Where there can be dunes, let's put a dune. But we got the beach here, and then we got the dunes back here. We put more dunes up here, and every high tide is getting higher and higher. And even though that it'll protect things, but once those turtles lay their nests, they go usually right up to those dunes. And if the dunes are closer, we're going to start losing more nests.
Don't they go up into the dune? I mean,
Not always. Sometimes, yeah, sometimes.
in Marco, there was a cliff this high, and all the turtle nests were on top of that.
Yeah.
So,
Which
I
is
mean,
great, when they're smart enough to do
so
it.
I'm not a turtle expert. I would think a dune would give the turtle a higher spot to put their nest, not a lower spot.
They want the dunes, there's no question about it. Do they go over dunes? No, typically, because they know that the hatchlings can't find their way back out, because if there's a dune, how are they ever gonna see the horizon to find the water? So,
Yeah.
I mean, they usually find out, they stop when they get to a higher spot and make their dune. Make their nest. But, the other advantage of the shell is that had that dune not been there, they would have, the water would have ran all the way up to the property.
Which it does. It goes behind that dune sometimes.
Yeah, well, there's openings, but also, I mean, the point of having a frontal dune is so it'll actually start to accrete sand. I mean, it'll collect sand as the vegetation grows, and it won't, it'll produce more shoreline, technically.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fluctuates. There's like, it's
yeah.
cyclical almost.
Gone up 2 years. Last 2 years has been a pretty good jump, basically. So,
Has it gotten better
I would say that it was relatively stable. So it looked like 95 to 2000 was relatively relatively stable. Then it I don't know, maybe it was Charlie 20. Then there was a year of 24, 21, 12, and 8. I mean, that's a 4-year run. 34 one year, then 11, 2020, all the way to 2011. Now 60, 44, 48, 73, 92, 99, 68, 112, 132. So there's been a rise in it.
But these are just nest laid, not
I'm just saying,
even.
Right, yeah, I mean, right, and that's, I mean, there's a lot of reasons for that too, of course, so. Point. So the other thing, my thought was, is there some type of a graduated time for compliance? Point. And,
Definitely.
is that an element to say that you've got a little bit of time? Is it?
About like 6 months for them to come up with a plan to become compliant with the new ordinance.
Before next turtle season.
About 6 months from now, January, February.
We can, I mean, that's not our point. I guess we can just say that if they want to consider a time element. Again, it's not enforcement, really. I mean, the law doesn't change. I don't think they're,
Is there any type of incentive we can offer the property owners to accommodate them having easier access on and off the beach?
well, the managed beach zone. Oh, I see what you're saying. I mean, to put one in because then they can manage it, but,
Not do it like like you were saying, like you have to do it, but like if you help these companies, we'll help, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours kind of thing. We want to start protecting these turtles in new ways that as we learn more about the environment, as we learn more about the turtles, and as their environment changes, okay, we're making these guys change the business that has been established for 30 years. It shouldn't just fall on them for them doing their thing. Let's make the property owners also step up so they also,
I mean, that's my point. They're benefiting from them conducting business on their property.
That's the sand replenishment project that is funded by the state, and if we're not compliant with the state, we won't get the money and we won't get the sand.
Yeah, so that's their incentive kind of thing.
Yeah.
I got you.
So if we want the money to get more sand, more beach, gotta be compliant with the state. We're right in the contracts right now, and we don't want all of a sudden the state say, blew it.
Yeah.
Lose all that money.
All right, we have got to move this on here.
Move it on.
But the ordinance as would give the vendors 6 months to try to become compliant.
I'd rather just go with the time element. That's not really much to say, but.
The issue, I just want to remind the issue is bigger than just the vendors. Again, cottage, they have a dozen or so picnic tables out there. You know, Lanny Kai's had furniture out there that I understand has been there for decades. Beach furniture out there is out there at night. It's more than just the vendor. To, you know, and to some other points that's been made, it's, you know, other obstructions on the beach that also may need to be addressed that the town has out there.
All right, well, let's cut to the chase here. So, just simple, I mean, based on what we're suggesting, we're saying that we recommend no changes to the language of the ordinance.
Accept it as written.
I mean, it's not our responsibility to figure it out. I mean, I don't want to include language on the frontal dune, but yes, that point's been made to them.
We're still trying to make it so people can adjust the dunes in certain ways, right, eventually?
Hasn't this ordinance been passed?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it would have to be amended.
Right.
Right.
Recommend amendments, 6 months, and recommendation of Dune.
I really don't think I want to do that.
Okay, so one here in the dune. So, everyone, so I'm going to suggest this, that that the verbiage that says that we support the advice of the town attorney, and then best compromise involved would be the development of a frontal dune on the property used to conduct beach vending services, as it would establish that portion immediately behind the dune is non-nesting beach and allow for beach vendor storage needs. I don't know, is non-nesting beach, is that the right term, Chad?
Again, sorry?
Non-nesting beach, is that a term?
Non-nesting.
Well, basically, it's not a.
Nesting habitat is defined as the sandy.
Habitat.
No, behind the frontal dune, it's not a.
Oh,
Right, so that doesn't fit the
What
definition.
would you call that?
Back dune, if it's a house, I call it a house.
Talking in
Landward?
between the frontal dune
I'm
and the
talking
back
about
dune.
like
Shell.
shell, that area behind that frontal dune.
Call it anything, we just don't call it beach.
On turtle.
so that's between the dune and the property, the building, where they store their,
Sandy area, what do you
where
call
they
that?
where they store their equipment.
And call it a storage area.
Could be very interpretive.
Now we're looking for,
Development of storage areas behind.
Natural storage.
so let me rewrite that, so, and then we establish that portion. Storage. No, it is space. Allow for beach vendors' storage needs. How about that, space? Wow. talk about the legal aspects, we talk about the viable solution. And what else? Okay.
Time to develop.
Anything, I mean, you wanna talk about the imaginary line? Make sure that we are close to that.
There's, to Ms. Sharon's point, there is, verbiage in there that has it in there.
It's current?
Yep, that is in chapter 14. So if you
Okay.
go to Municode, which is the current version of the code,
That's up to
so
the,
you have a definition of beach. Again, this is just what Ms. Sharon said earlier. So it means this area of sand along the Gulf of Mexico that extends landward, place where there is a marked change in material or physiographic form, or the line of permanent vegetation. Everything's up for interpretation, but you have a seaward line of vegetation. It's not the line of permanent vegetation, so not the same verbiage, but seaward line of vegetation means location closest to the mean high water line containing or suitable for dune vegetation. There's no such vegetation upon a parcel or portion of a parcel. It will encompass a line longshore projected from the closest areas on each side where such vegetation does exist. Outcrop of vegetation, trying to join them.
we can't comment on it then, right? Because it's in there, it's not our,
There's no reason to mention it.
okay? The other thing I think then is it's incumbent on the town of Fort Myers Beach to comply with their own ordinance, right? And correct any current non-compliances. I support that. I mean, right?
Yes?
They don't get off. I mean,
State and county
they don't get off.
regulations.
Okay. Okay, three things here. I'll actually make a motion. How about that?
Good idea.
Make a motion to offer the following recommendation, that the Marine Resource Task Force supports the advice of the town attorney that any deviation of the sea turtle ordinance made to accommodate beach vendors would place the liability and risk of noncompliance on the town of Fort Myers Beach. Number two, the best compromise for all involved would be the development of a frontal dune on the property used to conduct beach vending services, as it would establish that a portion immediately behind the dunes as space to allow for beach vendor storage needs. And then number three, it's incumbent on the town of Fort Myers Beach to comply with their own ordinance and correct any current non-compliances. Okay, we got a second. All in favor?
What, discussion?
All right,
Discussion.
we've had discussion.
Discussion.
You have to say the word.
Right, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously.
So,
We forget anything, Chad?
512.
Time to go home.
Yes,
No,
Oh,
can't do that. So let's go, we have, want to save the, bird nesting issue?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank everybody for coming and, presenting.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
all right.
okay.
I just want to mention one thing about the shorebird interesting issue,
Yes.
because on Monday, the 16th, there's going to be a Southwest region shorebird biologist named Tyson Dallas, who is going to be at Carlos Point Beach nesting area, and he's going to be there to help address the sand spur problem, which has recently resulted in several shorebirds being brought to Crow for treatment of sepsis
Yes.
and arthritis. So it's going to be a volunteer, that he's going to have bags. I assume he's going to tell people how to bring gloves, wear shoes. But I just thought
Thinking
now
that was
would be the
today,
time to
actually.
mention
Yeah, I think they've been
that.
doing that, Wendy. They've been collecting sand spurs.
Well, last week they did. They tried to, but I think maybe it was
Oh,
rained
it was
out.
rain, yeah, they got stormed out.
But I
maybe.
thought I saw an advisory
Right.
that said it was actually Wednesday. I thought it was today.
I think she's talking about the speaker.
Oh, the speaker, he's gonna be there.
No. The guy's going to be there. This biologist will be
Yeah.
there, accepting volunteers. You might want to bring your
Oh,
own
right.
bucket, but your gloves and, shoes, and that's going to happen on Monday. He's going to plan on
Monday.
being there 7:45
Okay.
and to pick as long as he can or until, rain.
I think he was the one that was supposed to be
Yeah,
here today.
Chad's in charge of that, I think, isn't he?
No, FWC's actually running it.
Oh.
But I think that Tyson was supposed to be at this meeting, and he's the one
Oh.
that didn't come, and he was gonna explain it to us, so.
Oh, okay. I thought if we're shelving that, we.
Well, I think he was just gonna give us a quick update, because again, they were gonna come here, and the idea is they have a management plan for Big Carlos Beach. It's gonna involve herbicides. And that's a touchy situation. I mean, they're talking about broadcast glyphosate.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
For the
Wow.
spurs?
Roundup for spurs, but it's indiscriminate, right? So it's gonna just
Look, well,
About
everything.
everything.
Including
So
the birds?
yeah, so I think it's up. We'd like to weigh in on that and say that's
Sure.
not, well, after the seed. I mean, this is probably in September, or whatever. I think.
Okay.
But I mean, there's spot treatment. There's there's different ways I think they could approach it.
Sure.
So, I mean, if anything, you give it another year and you go out there and you pull them all up like we did last year, but also they're just starting early now and taking the seed heads off now instead of waiting until September. But like last year, we actually went out and pulled
You did.
sand spurs, yeah,
Yeah.
after the nesting season. By that time, they were starting already to seed, and then what they do at the end of the year is they rake the whole thing again, and it just allows them under, and it, I think,
They come right back.
propagates them
back.
better, yeah, so.
Is-
I'm sorry.
Is this Tyson Dallas FWC? And they're,
Yes, I
they're
think
coming
so.
up
There's
with
a
the-
woman that's
Wow.
the Southwest Regional person, and he was here because she couldn't make it or something, so. Maybe I'll just use that as the update. You guys good with that?
Sure.
Let's go, and actually, then we only have one more, and actually, maybe we can hammer through that pretty quick, but the street lighting project, depending on how much discussion you want to have about it, I think Doc Fossum was going to be able to miss it. Rob, you weren't able to attend, but I think,
Was
yeah.
Chad able to read what I sent? It was pretty much just.
Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, we did, yeah, that was added to the record. Thank you for that, and, so, thought is I know the Public Safety Committee, I think they had a meeting between that and the next town council meeting, so they were able to provide them with a recap of that presentation. And I felt like, that the Human Resource Task Force should also provide, I think it was a train wreck, the presentation. I mean, I've just gone on record here, it was tone deaf, it had anything to do with what the town needs or is asked for either by any of the stakeholders. So in preparation for it, there's a steering document that I think Chad, did he hand it all out? Did he hand it to you guys?
Yes, I think.
Yeah, the draft.
I have a question. Can't the town just tell this company that they've paid for their recommendations take nothing into consideration that the stakeholders need to have taken into consideration. Let the town just tell them, here's your money, goodbye, thank you very much. You're not doing what we want you to do. You're just ignoring everything. Done.
That's up to the town council,
Why
obviously.
don't they just do that?
If you look at the steering document, we're gonna maybe suggest that they do that. Not actually, in the end, they're very capable engineers. I think they understand the principles of lighting, and we have to have an engineer to complete the project. We have to have a photometric plan. You need a what light where, and hand that to somebody like FPL.
So who did Treasure Island get that from? They got it from their power company and
And they had I think a staff engineer or just whatever. They weren't a consultant. The difference is they came and said, this is what we want. Build it. Do it. Not give us a bunch of recommendations, with basically the majority of them not thought through, incomplete. And the only one that really was worked on was the dual light. That's the only thing. As a matter of fact, they're already working on trying to get units here to hang up for demos and stuff like that.
information and.
Yeah, so if you take a look at this, I personally won't be here for the 16th meeting. Is it the 16th? Yeah. So we have two things to share with them. One is our recommendation on the beach obstructions and beach furniture and stuff, the one that we just completed. So I'll write that up and then send that out on our fancy little form. The second one is this draft for consideration for this for the recap and then the recommendation. Do you have a chance to read it, or should we take just a minute now to go over it?
Basically, the second.
Well, I
got the recap, but.
The recap, and then on the second page is a recommendation.
Need to recap it since they have the minutes?
Well,
Can't we
again,
just
they
do
haven't watched it.
recommendations?
I think they need to understand it from our perspective. I know that certainly two council people watched the meeting. One was present. Mayor Murphy was here for that presentation. And I know there's another councilman that had watched it on video, on the live stream. So
Was that?
that was Councilman Adderholt. I know those two are up to date. But again, I don't know if the other three have. The question is this a fair recap? And do we have, agreement? Basically, if there needs to be modifications to this, again, public safety did literally the same thing. I'm not sure they made the recommendation, but they basically recapped it, and they were not happy. We're not happy at all with it at all. John Goggin presented, and it took a few minutes to do it. But that was also from, he said specifically, the safety perspective, and anything to do with anything else was up to the Marine Research Task Force. So
They recommend a light?
no, they sticking by the original recommendations, which is they want a single source. They don't want to be changing light sources mid-year.
Is our point too, we agree.
Right, we want a single one as well. So they didn't have a choice. They just wanted safest. And our recommendation was we wanted to have amber all year long.
What do they consider safest? Like, I know we've just, yeah.
It's in here. The problem is this, and we challenged them at the meeting, basically to say, you can no longer call it safer until you show us evidence.
And that's my point.
Of that. There's no documentation.
It's
It's their opinion. It's a subjective opinion. And there's no empirical data at all that suggests it. There's towns, amber's not a novel concept. There are towns that have been using it. I believe it's in here. Well, the city of Flagstaff's had it forever too. And there's no indication that the collision rate or accident rate is any higher.
Well, that's just it. They have all these opinions. We have facts and evidence of why.
That are rejected. or disputed.
Right.
Or not even acknowledged.
Right, and
Not
that's
even acknowledged, and that's a real problem.
big problem.
Yeah, so that's what we wanted to share with this draft. Basically, it talks about the fact that since the first stakeholder meeting, which we were part of, I was a part of it, the second stakeholder meeting, to the presentation, or to the feedback form that we all went through with them, correct? Where we threw the form away and made our recommendation. But there's, a preconceived focus on this 4,000K white amber dual source recommendation. And then they continue to dispute, contest, and reject stakeholder input into the process. There's not a single stakeholder or public entity that is requesting a dual source lighting product that I know of. That's been voiced on in the newspaper, on Beach Talk Radio, or anywhere. The document was prepared with incomplete specs, which was for the other amber solutions, incorrect data, and financial information that was in direct conflict with the information presented to council by FP&L. The tariff information was in conflict. They said, no, this is, I read it, and then the lead engineer said, oh, well, I didn't account for that type of stuff. It was again focused singularly on the dual light offering with disregard to providing accurate representations of the parallel lighting recommendations. So there were other lighting recommendations in there, but there wasn't really, it wasn't very accurate, or like the solar thing. They just didn't choose to even look into it. They took that presentation and said, well, this is going to cost you $11 million. So we encourage the town council to watch the video of their presentation, and if they haven't done so. Although requested by the Public Safety Committee, there was no empirical data on traffic safety differences between shortwave white light and long wavelength amber light. There's found absolutely no data available that proves the difference in safety collision rates. It's been established, amber lights in many communities, and there's no proof of increased traffic collision. So also we believe that this safety concern is kind of pitting the Public Safety Committee against MRF. I mean, I think that
Sounds like it.
clear that that's how they position it, especially during that
They found a little niche to go at.
Right. And so they continue to use the word safer, so that we requested afterwards that they discontinue the narrative of using the word safer when describing the white light. I mean, you can't use that word because there's no proof that it is. Florida DOT has approved the use of and safety of amber lighting to meet illuminance levels, and has recommended its use as wildlife area of concern, which includes Estero Island, which we are. They choose not to, because it's not a state road, they choose not to follow the Green Book standards. So that is something we can bring up to their point. Also, in all the benchmarking cases, so we'd asked them to look into Treasure Island to Sarasota. They said Sarasota was using low pressure sodium lighting. One of the guys is from Sarasota. And no, they're putting up solar amber lighting for the entire beach. And they said, no, it's just low pressure sodium. And Treasure Island, they put up 8 lights, and people are looking at it to see if they like it, we called the project manager. And no, it's completely approved. They're waiting for certification by the FWC, and then they're also putting 88 more down Pinellas County along Gulf Boulevard. None of that was shared. I mean, so.
Pulling random stuff out of the air to sell their
Well,
product.
they also said that in this meeting, they said that, or in their written recommendation, that the Treasure Island was the police department and fire department said no, they were against it, and it was muddy light. So Jennifer called the police department. And they refuted that. They said, no, we never said that. The head of the night patrol, watch said, no, it's got a different color to it, but there's been zero complaints from anybody on it, and it doesn't prevent us from doing our job.
And gave us the official report. So what took me 5 minutes, we're paying them $185,000. Question that was posed by the stakeholders, the Marine Resource Task Force, and Public Safety, their answer back was completely false.
Right. So
Deliberately so.
Good job, Jeff.
Deliberately.
well, again, it's inaccurate and misrepresented. Which you had said is unfair to our community that they're actually doing that, and also presents a trust issue.
That alone right there should make us start really like reconsidering even working with them, to me.
That's the, again, that's our,
Yeah, the council's gonna have to decide.
they're gonna have to decide that, because this is obviously dragged on for a long time, but they can certainly give them direction, I think, so. The mayor has described Treasure Island as our sister city in Florida, and in this case, it's a case study of they rejected the 4,000 K lights, which is what they're suggesting you put on here, and they converted to full amber all year long. And on the residential streets as well, because those people won't live under that light. So if they're really our sister city, I mean, don't we learn from them? But also, Lee County has it also, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, with installed 4,000 K white lighting on Store Road, which is a 4-lane, I think in some cases 6-lane, I don't know, it's a big road that runs through Cape Coral. It was rejected by the citizens within the vicinity of the road. The county has since shielded, because of this outcry, they've shielded all the lights, and they dimmed them by 40%. They're still meeting their illuminance levels.
People are still complaining about them.
Right, which it illustrates the excessive illumination, that of this 4,000 K white lighting. And Estero Boulevard is a 2-lane, mostly residential road with a maximum speed of 30 miles per hour. So why would you put that type of prison lighting on our
It's
roadway?
also residential as well.
Exactly. I mean, sure, except for the first, 200 yards, first whatever, for a mile into the town, and it's spaced by Santini, but it's all almost residential. So that's and then last one was, they also refused to even acknowledge any kind of human health concerns from this broad spectrum, the white LEDs, as well as as the widely documented, empirical data proving the negative effects on the biodiversity and the ecosystem. So all of these reports on what it does to reproduction of amphibians, to concentrating. So this is what they said. The question was, I said, well, who's your environmental expert? And I don't know, they sort of heed and hawed, and then they said, oh, Rick is, Kaufman, who was calling in remotely. He said, yeah. I worked on a project that had, that involved bats, and I had to look into the bats, and that light's great for the bats because it draws all the insects there, and then the bats just go and feed on them. I mean, if that isn't tone deaf, I mean, that's exactly what the light does, is it concentrates species. I mean, it's like light in the water, it's not good. So, anyway, it told me that we've got a problem. So furthermore, again, for consideration is a recommendation that says that we recommend that the town council reject the dual light focus of town lighting and prevent furthering the time and money spent on a solution that has not shown acceptance by overall stakeholder groups. Okay? The dual light source recommendation is not a commercially available product, nor is it FDOT, FWC, nor FPL certified. Doubtful that the FWC will certify the dual source luminaire, and consequently FPL will not place it on their approved product list. They won't put an approved product on that the FWC doesn't certify. And Robin Trundell, who's the head of the imperiled species, on the call said that they won't certify a dual light source for a couple of reasons. One is because it suggests that amber light is not safe. Number two, that if it doesn't have, and it hasn't been developed, a fail-safe power interruption, that it doesn't come on all white. And I forgot what the third one was. But basically, so that's why that's in there. That says it, the possibility. What's the word I used? Was used consequently doubtful. There's no guarantee after all this work that the dual light source system will meet specifications nor achieve certification, resulting in the loss of time and money for taxpayers of Fort Myers Beach. So the one interesting thing that has come out of this is that they have the amber source. So their amber light that they're going to use only needs 300 poles. You can put them out 120 feet. So maybe this is a better way to look at it. Basically, they have, there's two approved lights. One is 6,000 lumens, all right? One is 12,500, and they have one that's 16,500. So it's almost 3 times, 6 to 12 to 16, right? Okay, 18 would be more accurate, but to 16. So the 600 amber, they need 518 poles. 12,500, they need 500 poles, but for their 16.5, they only need 300. So they're suggesting that this 12,500, for some reason can't be used because of glare or something. So somehow they had, oh, and by the way, this is produced with, 185 watts. So to give you an idea, this is, I don't know, 30 lumens per watt, and this is maybe 40. This thing's 90. Somehow they have this 3 times efficiency that's not anywhere in the industry. So, but there's no specifications for it. So the point here is that this amber source they have that they suggested is can use, and they only need 300, has been listed with sensational specifications. Oh, it also has a CRI, so this color recognition, which is why they're saying white life is safer, 70. Whereas amber light typically is 10 to 20. How that happens, I'm not sure. Lighting efficiencies that are 3 times the current technology. So I think the point is this product has been illustrated to require only 300 luminaires versus the 500 to 800 luminaires for the currently certified amber products. As such, MRF would encourage the involvement of town council, request that town lighting move forward with development of just the amber source, right? To
Right.
be used as a year-round singular light source, which meets the previous recommendations of both the Public Safety Committee and MRF, right? Because it's a single source and it satisfies them and us.
Does this need to be presented at the next meeting?
This should be read, yes.
And you're,
I mean, so this is a draft. Is there corrections anybody like to make on it, or any?
I think we should add the lies, like specifically call them out on it. It just shows what type of.
Well,
No, that's
there's a
petty.
trust issue.
No.
I think we have, yeah, I mean, well, the gloves will come off later, this isn't accepted. I mean, there's a real problem here, and this is, from the start, even in their document, even the recommendation document, it says in the back, is we've always said that we wanted to do a dual light, and I think it's a personal thing for them. It's a project that they want to increase their position in the industry, I think.
I may have asked this already, but when they were hired, were they directed to get advisement from and recommendations from Public Safety and MRF?
Well, the stakeholders, yes, they were to conduct stakeholder input meetings to get the input from the public, and the stakeholders were, was the chair, I was there, this chair of the Public Safety Committee, the Chamber of Commerce person was there was police, fire, 2 citizens, and the list goes on. Who else was on there? I don't know, there's a few more people that were on it. So it's supposed to be a broad input to take their input and distill it into what's right for our community. And it never took place, which is a real shame. And of course, they were paid to do that as part of as they did. One thing I will say, and I'm not sure how we missed it, but on the bid specifications, it does suggest that a dual light system could be an option.
We didn't know enough at the time.
Well, again, it was an option.
That was on their bid that they turned in?
On the request for bid, it was, you need to find something for a coastal community. It has to be FWC approved. It has to be, or certified. It has to meet our requirements. But also, I think the town manager went to a trade show and some guy showed him a dual, concept. And maybe that's why it was put in there. I'm not sure. But it had been discussed earlier at town council meetings that might be of interest because the Fort Lauderdale was potentially looking at something, which, by the way, they did not install. They have just amber lighting. Fort Lauderdale.
Or not installing it?
I'm not sure. Not approved.
Yeah.
It's not certified.
Okay.
It's not certified. I think those are 2 different words. Certified by the FWC for wildlife lighting. Consequently, FP&L won't add it to their wildlife approved product list. Their words, actually, in Milton's words, and also in Bob Horswood, who presented to town council. other words, they won't add something unless it's certified FWC. I think that would put the town at risk.
Well, I think this is great.
I'll make a motion.
Please do.
Make a motion that, this draft becomes the, recommendation to town council, for the recap of the meeting, that Town Lighting presented on Estero Boulevard lighting, the recommendations of the Public Safety Committee and the Marine Resource Task Force Advisory Boards on July 26, 2021. Recap, and then the MRF recommendations.
And that.
Question? Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimously. This, as well as the beach obstruction documents, will be sent to Chad for distribution. And then we just need somebody to present this at the town council meeting on the 16th under the advisory board reports. Jennifer, you won't be here, right? Either?
Depending on Fred.
I'm just trying to think who if there's
Dr.
questions.
Fawcett.
I'm just thinking if there's
I'm in Philadelphia.
Oh,
Mary, are you interested?
when is it?
The 16th,
Of-
the 16th of August.
It's coming up
It's a
Monday.
Monday. I think it's a regularly scheduled 9, whatever time it starts, 9 a.m.
I can't, I have an appointment.
Bob, is anybody gonna be around?
I could tentatively do it.
Friends.
The only hangup would be, I'm scheduled that day as like an on-call for,
Okay.
so I potentially could, right now there's no one booked or anything. It could change up till the night before, so I can let you guys know the night before, but I could be, a plan B, I can be there to.
Rose, will you be available, or
I
Wendy?
could be
Wendy
available
will
on
do it.
Monday.
Pardon me?
I could be available on Monday.
Okay, good.
Do you want to do it, or do you want me to like let you know, or let someone know if I can't, or how would you like to do it?
Oh.
Good question. Can I think about that for
We could do
the
it together, and then if I can't go,
team?
we could do it together, and then if I can't go, then it's all on you.
Okay, that's fair.
Is that cool?
Okay. Perfect. I don't think we have to vote on that. Okay, perfect. So we'll get those documents. In general, I think in general, you just have to read it. I'm not sure they'll have questions. You don't have to necessarily. Specific. I mean, this really isn't specific on specifications or anything, so. Okay, so that's it for that. To get back to the Carlos Point Beach shorebird nesting, we talked a little bit about it while you were out.
So, I did speak with FWC, before the meeting. She apologized profusely about not being able to come. Just something came up last minute that held her up. Just physically couldn't get here in time. Didn't realize that we're gonna take so long on the previous item.
Me
But,
neither.
A hot topic, man. Holy cow.
so, there, as you all may be aware, so septic arthritis, came up in the colony, black skimmer colony in Marco last year. Found, I think it was, 5 different species of bacteria. Whenever they did necropsies, FTEP, and then it came up again this year in the Marco colony. I think they said it was on the order of 50 birds, but that wasn't a confirmed count because so many had already been so decomposed. 6, I should say. We had it come up here and on the order of, I think, the 32 or 37, somewhere around.
Birds?
Birds.
Are those exclusively chicks?
Black skimmer chicks. I think there was one adult in Marco, which was new this year. So FTP is doing some pretty high-tech and expensive water quality testing around Marco. I'm not sure if they're doing it around. They're doing some tracer or maybe some positive. I don't know the details, but they did mention tracer. or, I don't know, closer or something to, if it's human connected or what's happening. But as soon as I get more details on that, I'll share it. But the long and short of it is they are doing some water quality testing over there, and they're just not sure what's happening. One of the common denominators is sand spurs, hence the call-outs for sand spur removal. Right now, at this stage, it's not so much to protect the birds that are there now. It's more just to try and reduce the seed bank. It's a monumental task given the acreage that's out there and the number of sand spurs is out there, but it really helps. FWC is coming back with a management plan, so waiting to see what they have to suggest for that beach management. It's kind of where we stand. We're not really sure what's causing it. Obviously, sand spurs have been in the Florida ecosystem for a while. In fact, this has popped up in the last couple of years as a environmental red flag, in my opinion. Exactly what's driving it.
Dog Beach, I mean, not right next to it, but it's pretty close. Dog Beach. Or Lover's Key tests out Dog's Beach, I think, weekly.
Is it solely skimmers? And if so, why? Are they the only ones in the area?
It is solely skimmers, and I'm not sure as to why. I don't know if it's that
Are
they're...
they the only chicks in the, no, there's other chicks in that area.
That's chicks, but I think the least terns tend to fledge a little bit earlier, and maybe the sand spurs aren't as established. Maybe.
I was talking to somebody from the Audubon when I did the cleanup.
Yeah, and what
about
they say?
why it's
Yeah.
down. He said it's something to do with how the chicks run around at certain ages. They're getting sand spurs in their feet and opening up the wounds, because the other birds tend to stay close to the nests.
Yeah.
That they're running around, they're getting the sand spurs in, they're getting cut up, and then whatever's in the sand or in the water gets into their wound, and that's where it's just their behavior at certain life stages. What I gathered from what he was saying.
Okay, well, we'll be anxious to find out what that land management plan will be. Weighing in on that, I'm sure. Almost forgot about the invasives there. I don't know how I...
FWC did say they're going to try and make themselves available next meeting. FYI.
Okay, good. Well, we'll make sure we add them to the... And so, I don't know why I forgot, but invasives.
I know, and I'm like, well, I can talk real fast, and
Well,
that was, or I can start, and then people could think about it again till the next meeting about what they want to do.
You want? Yeah, I think it'll take a couple meetings to actually...
Oh, yeah, and that was great information you sent out from, like, the city of Pensacola and stuff.
I thought that one was really spot on, but just as a caveat before we get started, I got to tell you, I was walking down today and I saw their landscaping, Key West, the road right there, it's like across from, just south of Publix on the beach side, those 4 condos there, and they're putting in Mexican petunias, a ton of them. I went in there, I said, those are Mexican petunias. It's like, yeah, I said, those are invasive. I'm thinking, doing all this, but yet how do we have to somehow, I mean, as fast as we can pull them out, it sounds like they're going to be putting them in unless we do something
Right, yeah.
legislatively. So anyway, go ahead.
Well, you guys got the number chart and you got the properties, and probably, I would have to say, because we didn't walk the beach and there was lots of trees and invasives behind people's homes, there's probably safely over 1,000 properties on the beach with invasive plants. I feel comfortable saying that. That's not something mysterious. Since the last meeting in June when we looked at this, I did send out thank you notes. I got letterhead and sent out thank you notes to all the people that provided, or organizations or businesses or churches that provided us free parking for the Mr. Gardner volunteers to do this project. Data has all been entered. It's now, I brought a copy for Chad on a flash drive. It's in the Excel program. And so what happened was that every single time there were 5 walks, and every single time there would be a map that was color-coded, and then each group got their own map with their own color, and then they returned all of them to me, and so that data has all been entered. There was a letter of disclaimer, and so they're kind of talking about that at the League County Extension Service, thinking that just by saying that invasives may or may not have been seen on your property, that that's enough. Then I sent out that sheet about what are we going to do with all this information. Education seems to be one of the biggest things. I know some people have mentioned sending a letter to property owners, which is very expensive, and letters would have to be drafted and approved, but right now the pop-up is probably the biggest ally here of getting stuff out, because they have information on, plans to get butterflies and wildflowers. Marine Resource Task Force pop-up has also sometimes had the Master Gardener volunteers as part of it. So at that time, we show up with a tablecloth and other handouts, including horticulture information, landscaping designs, and the Lee County Extension Service has approved the fact that those brochures from the Native Plant Society can also be incorporated with our stuff, as well as the dune management aquarium that shows the native plants in sand dunes. Eliminates or at least cuts down on beach erosion. There's been some articles in the Beach Observer. I did one back in January, and I'm about to turn in another one real soon here in the next 2 days in the morning on invasive plants. I was about to write an article on toxicity, which actually is one of the things that you had sent out about risk to human health and also to pet health. But I thought I'd save it for when the snowbirds are back and we have a larger percentage of people that would be interested in that topic. There are a lot of the invasives that we were targeting are toxic. So it's not just that they're bad for native wildlife, they're toxic to humans and pets. So
Oh, that's important.
yeah, it'd be a great article for get people motivated.
Oh, huge incentive to get rid of them.
I've looked at some grants. Most of them had already expired either by years, or the last one I saw was like March of 2021. So that's still something of searching for money to pay for this. And also having some people get second opinions. When you look at the data, you can see that there are not many carrot woods, lead trees, or mimosa trees sighted. And when I talked to the coordinator of the Master Gardeners, it's like the Lee County Master Gardeners pretty much focus on vegetation that's for gardening, for butterfly gardening, vegetable gardening. They have a whole team for citrus plants, any types of pest diseases, nutrient deficits that those might have. But they really don't have a group that focuses in on invasive trees. And because you can't get close to a lot of the trees, you couldn't really look at the leaf structure. So if you're looking at a lead tree from a distance, it also could look like a wild tamarind tree, which is not invasive. So there was a lot of difficulties there with just proximity to the plants and being able to label them. And then there was a thing of Sanibel has all these great informational sites within their website under natural resources, and hopefully some of y'all got to take a peek at those. I've been in contact with the lady who does that section, and she wanted to hear what our recommendations were, because some might be a freebie to share with us and some might not be. So there was the one with the wildflowers. Mm-hmm. That was kind of a simple one, but it had nice pictures and descriptions of wet, dry, the height of the plant, whatever. There was also the one was the atlas. The atlas is actually put out by the University of South Florida. I'm assuming that we could get permission from them to just add it to our website if interested. And then there was the new slideshow, which is a new edition for them, and I'm thinking that they paid for that. So any aha moments of which ones you would like to be considering for us, for town of Fort Myers Beach, or you want to think about it some more?
As far as,
Which ones to let her know that we're interested in and to see if they're free or not?
I like all of the above.
All of them?
yeah, basically, yeah.
The more information we can get out, the better.
Okay.
Especially if we're going to tell people certain plans are unacceptable, we need to offer them a place where they can go to look for what they might put in its place.
Well, that's the other
that's
thing.
the
If
huge
we
one.
want to add it to the town's website, or if we just want to direct them to their town's website. Which
Nice
is,
to put it on our website. I think if,
okay.
nice to have a environmental section of our website. Build
Okay.
that.
And then, I don't know, there's a lot of suggestions on what to do in coming up with a comprehensive plan.
Yeah, that was, I mean, I found those documents to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's the question.
It takes,
What's the scope, you know, I mean, the whole vision, the scope, I mean, we know what the vision is, but what's the scope, and then the objectives, and then the implementation, and then how do we measure success? I mean, those types of things. It's,
and the letter at the very tail end of the first one from the city of Pensacola was actually written by their extension person. Their,
oh, is that right? I didn't notice that.
yes, and so I sent that to our extension office, so they were going to be reviewing that to see what they could do to help. But this is really just saying that if a management plan is created, they will support plan, but then it's coming up with the plan.
You know, it's interesting, one thing I didn't notice, I mean, it's interesting, Canada there's only one I sent, I think, from Canada, the Ontario one, but there was a bunch there. And they were sort of all based on the same sort of formula. The more I looked at sites, the more I saw the same sort of formula with the rapid response, and that you know, you saw some points that seemed to be reoccurring in a lot of them. But our scope here, I mean, just the scope of just our geography is much smaller than most of those you're looking at. They're talking about, all this commercial areas.
20 parks and,
Huge, yeah, exactly. I mean, how many parks are, you know, I mean, do we know right now whether public lands, our public lands here on Fort Myers Beach, so town-owned properties, are those all invasive free? Do we know that?
Are you saying like Mound House?
Mound House, Newton Park,
I mean, free is a absolute word, so I'd hate to say free, but I do believe they maintain it, and it's really well maintained.
yeah.
Mound House has some species that I would say are probably exotic. Man, I think there's a mango tree on there, and
There's a mango tree, yeah,
and a banyan tree, which, you know, may be arguably naturalized.
right.
I think the ones to really look out for are the category ones where they're
Kind of invasives.
invasive exotics that are actively displacing native vegetation communities, wildlife.
Right. I think that is the
Those are
number
the
one
nasties.
objective. How many of these were class ones, do you know?
most of them, but I have the list.
Yeah.
Some of them aren't. Actually, lead trees are not.
Some of these, I looked at
It's a long
You
one.
can look up the FLE list that categorizes them, and
Potatoes
yeah, I think
definitely
I downloaded
are.
that.
Asparagus fern, Australian pine, obviously. Bowl of the beach plant, Brazilian pepper is a definite. I'd say Mexican petunias not.
I'm thinking it's not, because I looked at there's a Florida, and I don't know what office of Florida, what department, whatever, has is it noxious weed?
addicts.
What did I tell you? It was basically, yeah, I mean, they're outlawed in the state, but you can't import them. So I was thinking Mexican petunia, you can buy that at Home Depot, right? Unfortunately.
Brazilian pepper and Australian pine are definitely on that prohibited list.
Yeah, that particular list, I mean, you can't buy, sell,
Only air potato.
and knowingly plant, obviously it's on your property, you know, it's free that you can say it was existing, but that's why I think Mexican petunia was not on that, because any that are on there, so, I mean, I don't know, you have to turn it into state police or something, I guess, I don't know, to enforce it, but the one thing that stood out for me is, I mean, there needs to be some noxious weed / invasive legislation we have here. I mean, to plant it. I mean, if we're spending the time to try to rid ourselves of it, why? You gotta stop you you can't be so busy mopping up the floor that you can't take time to turn off the sink, right? I mean, that's the point. So how do we gotta turn that faucet off, stop the flood, and then you can mop up mop up the island. So is there, Chad, I don't think we have any type of ordinances, correct? I mean, I think just, again, the minimal, that you can't plant exotic invasives. I mean, class ones, minimum. Otherwise, all of our efforts here are moot, you know?
Can we do that?
Of course we can. I mean, we can't do it
Recommend.
personally, but we can recommend to the town council to say, listen, we're trying to work on invasives. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to get rid of these exotic invasives. You know, they outcompete with the natives. They don't provide the food we need for native wildlife. I mean, there's a ton of them.
There's a bunch of examples on page 3 and 4 of your first one from the city of Pensacola. It lists a whole bunch of them, and that's way back from 2012, 13, 14. So there's many
Sandbal's
more.
got an extensive, ordinances on landscaping. But again, this is very minimal, I think, too. I'm not a huge regulatory guy, but for stuff like that, it's to the benefit of the town, I think. Do it. And I think in most cases, it will bring attention to it if you say these are outlawed on the island. And this is why. I don't think anybody would object to that, except for those people saying, hey, it's my property, I want to put what I want on it. I don't care if it goes in everybody else's yard. It runs.
Well, especially if on the website we have, okay, you want to put X plant, well, you can't, but here's one that looks similar or grows similar or is similar care, that is native, giving them alternatives that are just that easy, that here's the one you want,
Yeah, and I think the immediate benefit, the old 80-20 rule, is it's the landscapers. They immediately know that they can't offer these, and then 80% of the problem is done. If somebody goes and buys something from Home Depot and puts it in, I mean, that's a one-off there, but you have guys that are landscaping properties with no problem. So I just was such an aha moment saying, geez, so we're just planting all these. We're sitting around figuring out how we're going to get rid of them. So, Rose, do you think we need to use a format to do the vision, the focus, and then just actually write it all out and say this is our plan and do it?
Sure.
I don't know if we can do it today, but...
Well, no, and it took them several years. They started in 2012, and they didn't finish till like 2014.
Yeah, right.
It wasn't like an overnight thing either.
Oh.
Then to look at some wording for ordinances, I mean, you have a bunch here, but those are, like I said, are from 2014, the examples.
Yeah.
So to see what's currently listed,
I used one of the sort of the formats, and the vision, control invasive plants within the town of Fort Myers Beach. The scope would be to inventory, to map it, which you're sort of doing. Include the CWA and EC zone, which we've gotten, I think, okay from the town to help you do that, Chad, right? We asked anyway. The objectives, or maybe the scope also, is the town-owned property, number one. Private property. How to remove it successfully? Do we put in legislation? Is this early detection, rapid response? I don't know, what that is, but is there town-supported herbicide application? Some of the stuff when you cut it down, they're saying you really need to paint that stump with a particular herbicide. And that's typically not something that a homeowner would have or whatever. So can we get the town to help us and say, okay, we'll we're working with a homeowner, or a homeowner's doing something, will they come and paint a few stumps or whatever? That type of stuff. I mean, that's where you get the involvement of the town. And also like an equipment loan program. Is there something the town has available to loan? I'm not going to say it's a steer or something, but again, with maybe a public works guy to say, okay, here's you submitted a request for help. Can we actually sort of put those resources together to go out there and yank the stump, or whatever kind of equipment we just determine is needed? I'm just throwing this out there. You know, and then measures of success. One of the things I think I'd read there is that you have to sort of keep inventorying to see if you're knocking them down or, like Sanibel had this air potato festival or something. They would awards whoever brought the most air potatoes. These are, I always saw them. I didn't realize those were air potatoes, but they're big vines, you know, these big leaves on them, and they have these big potatoes. They look like brown potatoes.
Matanzas Past Preserve is loaded with them.
Loaded with them, but they, you know, they basically got, I don't know how many, 1,000 pounds of them. I mean, they filled all these boxes, and apparently you can eat them. That's one of the reasons they're here, is because it was incredible.
No, I don't think they are.
No, I mean, that's,
think so.
I thought I read that. I thought I read that.
Might have.
I like to eat anything I can get my hands on. That's.
It looks like food.
But also they said the largest one they gave a prize for, the weirdest looking one, whatever. I mean, they made an event of it, and it was to bring attention to that particular plant and made a thing, and you know, a couple of gift certificates for first prize and all this, and then they also then made sure they got into the incinerator. Because
Right.
this collection is a big deal too. Make sure you collect it so it doesn't go back into a compost bin and somehow doesn't heat up properly, you know, compost, then you just pass it along. So stuff like that. I mean, you know, do we want to actually put, those could be added, but just
Right.
that sort
Like
of,
the one city had a month of invasive.
sit down and actually beef this thing out one time, but if we have that structure, then we can all just brainstorm in one session and try to blast it out.
We have lots of potential partners because we do have University of Florida, I mean, that whole IFAS thing.
Oh,
and
yeah.
we have the Florida Native Plant Society because they're contributing, and the local garden club. They put in the native garden
Oh, exactly.
demonstration
Right,
thing
right,
by
right.
the whale. And well, actually, that end of the island has quite a few things. They've now got all the planters in Times Square to be native. They've got the whales garden, the
Lot there, yeah.
demonstration garden. The Beach Elementary School has a garden. It's native plants, and so, or at least non-exotics that are invasive. And so, but then the whole rest of the island has nothing, so that's something else to see if to entice other groups to put in a garden. We do have the Nature Conservancy, Florida Exotic Pest Plant Council. We have other groups we can partner up with to help do this.
Do, and there's even, as I was researching some of this, there's money out there too. It seems like a lot of it's for maybe landowners that have larger plots or ranchers and stuff like that, where they fund
Agriculture is a lot.
a lot of money for agriculture, yeah, but I mean, I'm sure there's some from municipalities as well, I'd hope, but yeah, we need a grant writer for the town. Be a nice thing to have.
So for the next meeting, I'll come up with an outline for the whole project.
Yeah,
We'll
I think
pick it
choose, kind of
apart
look through that and see what
how
makes
that-
sense out of those structures, you know, because each of them had, and they're very, some of them were similar. And then we can just flesh out each action, part of it, and then bring that to council and say, this is what we want to do, and also find out how much skin, you know, they have in the game, or what kind of money, you know, it's always about the money. Do it all for free, they would do it, but if we decide to do some kind of a trade-in program, or whatever it might be. You've done so much work. Thank you, Rose.
Yeah, thank you, Rose.
Bravo.
The Hero of the Day Award. Make a motion that we give Rose Larkin the Hero of the Day Award.
Second.
Yeah, but you gotta do the Merkel.
All in
Award.
favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? All right. Thank you very much, and for the steering document too and everything. That did my heart good. Okay, so that's a very active project there. All right, actually 6 o'clock, we've done worse. We've covered a lot today, I gotta admit, I have to say. Murphy? Anybody have any Murphys?
Rose?
Can't give it to ourselves, what would the community say?
Well, give it to the committee.
No, because I'd say
Right.
the pop-up.
I actually do have one. Let me make sure I have the picture. I have a picture and a phone number. We were on a rescue. I called into action this weekend to do a turtle rescue, and off a junk canoe, a boat picked up a turtle. Actually, I don't know if they saw it get hit or whatever, but they brought it over. We had them bring to the Bowditch Park dock there, Bowditch Park. Missing was I mean, it actually had an entanglement where almost, I mean, it was all, just this far from falling off the flipper. I mean, it was just hanging there. So that's probably why I couldn't get out of the way, couldn't dive, I think. The whole back end was ripped off of it. I mean, I thought it was dead, but all of a sudden it moved and he was to bring it to control, which I knew would be dead by the time we got there. But anyway, these guys went out of their way to throw bloody turtle, collected bloody turtle, put it in their boat and bring it around the Bowditch for us for turtle time. So I did get a photograph, I think. And we still have one in the bank. You know, we're way behind on shoreline spotlights and Murphys. I don't think we've done a Murphy for, I think that skipping that meeting threw us off. I have a photo of the three people. So that's one, and we also have yours that you wrote up still. The Blue Boy. And,
Oh, I sent it to you, didn't I?
I do have it. That's what I'm saying, but we haven't, because we didn't have this.
That was already approved, that was already voted on.
That was already voted on, so I guess we'll put that in, but also on the shoreline spotlight, we're behind. I think Doc Fossum, you were due in June, I think. In July, but July 1, I think, is when it's, no, we moved you to, this isn't the right, I think we redid it here.
This is
500
article.
words, right?
I will send it out, 600 to 800 words. I thought I'd sent this out to you guys. So I have a document that actually tells you exactly what you have to do, what you have to do. I do the Murphy boilerplate, put a headshot of yourself and the Murphy winner, and then the other part was the email. So the last one, I think, was mine in May. And for some reason I have here, in June was Doc's, and he was gonna do pump outs, but that was, what meeting did we miss, July?
July.
So I think the way we had rationalized, I can't believe I don't have the right paper here, is that it was gonna be the
But
first,
I was gonna be August, but if you didn't do,
I think it's due the first day of the month, because we meet on that Wednesday, and so if we get it in that one, then we always put in, our next meeting is then. That's not always a requirement, though. I mean, the 4 to 5 people were having a meeting, because you can see how many people normally show up if there wasn't something contentious going on. So, again, is the first, is it, first of the month?
I always thought it was the second
So the way it
Friday.
would work is, so for this meeting, then, we would remind you, and I guess that's my fault, as the chair, I should be sending out a reminder, although I hate to keep sending it to Chad, because I can't just text you that, hey, send your shoreline spotlight in, because it'd be in violation of sunshine rules to do that. But I will do that. I'll actually put an electronic calendar and have it, just give me a reminder. So, at this meeting, then, we would normally be ready for the next month. So what's the next month, September? I would need the article by September 1st, the newspaper, and then it would be done by our meeting, and it would notify people we're having a meeting. That's part of the thing, so.
If you want me to, we can set up a reminder on mine, and I can include everybody, and it'll just be a monthly reminder that it will go out to everyone, and as an event that it'll help remind whoever it is that month.
Okay,
If that works.
yeah, shoreline spotlights too, and actually, notes section, I mean, we can probably put the,
If we can talk about it tomorrow, and I'll get it set
okay,
up.
I'll work together on the automation of that task, all right?
When you send that out, can you add in what you're looking for, also a little, like, more
Yeah, we can
specific?
actually,
Is that-
I think you can, touch it, the template or a document, or actually I can just take, I mean, it's not much of a document, so yeah, we can probably put that under the notes section for the meeting or whatever yeah,
Thank you.
great feedback. So what I have here is Doc, Rose, Wendy, Rob. And we start over again. Good with that? Okay, so Doc, you are now, September, I got Doc in June, Rose in July, Wendy in August, and Rob in September. So for September, and is Doc, and are you gonna do pump outs? Okay. I mean, again, that's up to you. Okay, so then October will be Rose. Is that okay, Rose?
Mhm.
And so October, November will be Wendy, and then Rob, you're in December. During high season there.
At home.
Damn it, man. Maybe be able to put a invitation in there for your services, no, I'm just joking. And if you need any help, go to www.rob.com, right? Okay, so then we'll straighten this out. So for September, we'll have your Murphy, and then I technically have this little one in the bank. Okay?
I don't know if you like this idea, but I have a photo of a woman who had a live sand dollar, and she took the time to walk it out into the water to set it in rather than just tossing, taking it. But I don't know if we want to be that technical.
I like
Well-
that idea. I'm noticing a lot of live shelling.
I was really
Yeah,
impressed.
I
She
too.
walked. And I asked her if I could take a photo, she was kind of embarrassed. I think she really. I was a wackadoodle, but
Yeah.
I didn't know this is important.
That's what you're saying. Have you guys noticed that there hasn't been any Florida fighting conchs on the beach? It just came to me, right? Isn't there normally a lot of them? And I don't know if that's seasonal,
It's more.
because I
There was
just
a
remember
big one
people
this
walking
morning by
down
myself.
and
Yeah.
helping by picking them all up and like backhanding them into the water. I'm thinking, oh my God, that's helpful, but not helpful.
So if you want to put that one in the bank or not use it or what, it's up to whatever.
It would be good
I'll
for
put
in
that in the
season,
bank.
for sure.
I have a photo of her and her name.
Oh, yeah, I
on it,
have a
so-
photo and name and address and.
But that's timeless. I mean, that's good. That's good. That's good. $1. Good. All right. Well, we got members' items and reports. Like to start, Rose? Do you have any?
Sure, the only thing I have to say is that the planters in Times Square, it'd be so nice if the town council approved those cigarette butt collecting containers, because there's so many cigarette butts that are being put into the planters as well as all over the grass.
You mentioned that because there's no cigarette receptacles in Times Square. Okay.
That's it.
Get a note on that. I'm not sure what I do about that, but actually we'll add that to our report on the 16th. I mean, maybe, right?
That's a good idea. It's an easy fix.
Yeah, you had brought that up before. I mean, I'm not sure what action items that come out of members' reports, because Rob's saying the same thing. He said, I talked about the pier. Isn't it going to be on the agenda? I said, I don't know if that's how it works, but. Okay, Times Square, gotcha. Murph, any pop-up news on, anybody wants to come to the
We're gonna be at the groundbreaking,
Margaritaville
at Margaritaville on the 13th.
popping up?
Popping up.
And also, I don't know if everybody knows, we have a new pop-up booth too.
We do, we have a new tent.
tent.
It's exciting, very easy for setup.
New banner as well. The town's
New
hooking us
banner.
up. It's,
Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
So I'm working on FWC on some handouts, some educational handouts.
Told me that the fishing regulation brochure is a real big hit because it's got
Big hit.
photos of all the fish in it. So I'll find out how I can get some of those for us too. All right. Back? Nothing. Okay. Okay, my turn, I guess. Shoreline Spotlight, we did that. Okay, I did that, Chad. Hey, big props to our environmental guy, Chad, with the gopher tortoise signs. I don't know if you saw them.
Oh, yeah.
Have anybody seen the gopher tortoise on Flamingo? Right as you enter the access and up onto the Moby mat where the bollards start, if you look to the left, up on a big high dune, there's a beautiful burrow right there with a little pretty good sized gopher tortoise about this big that's taken up at home there. And it's just so
But I want to
awesome.
know how she got there. Where did she come out of
She's
nowhere?
that one we saw walking. Remember we?
It was only this big.
Well, that was
year
a couple.
ago.
Well, it was
Oh, maybe-
I thought it was a couple years ago.
Could it be that?
Every so
one?
often we'd see them. Remember? It's
It also crossed Gulf Place. I saw the tracks going across that mat stuff, which you call what?
Moby mat, that blue
Moby
stuff.
mat.
You
Yeah.
didn't. Well, there was actually one released over there. We got a call that somebody picked one up and brought it up to Bowditch Point. Apparently, they can't release them with their population because of potential disease, maybe. So they chose not to do that, and so they called Turtle Time. And so we went and actually put it near Gulf. You know, not too close because if they fight, they flip the other one over, right?
Right,
To kill it.
right.
So we brought it a couple accesses further and released it. So.
How big was it, Steve?
Oh, there's a little guy.
Little one?
Yeah, about this big. About
Do you have any more of those signs? We got one in the dunes at Pink Shell I'd love to mark.
You really?
Yeah,
Wow, they're really
there's a
trees.
dune over there.
Yeah, see, the problem with this one is it's so close to the access there that,
Yeah.
I mean, people, as soon as it's set up, people are throwing lettuce. Every time you go by, there's food sitting there. People are trying to feed it. And I'm afraid when you see footsteps, footprints up on, it's like, this is too much to lay off of, and somebody's gonna pick it up, Chad said somebody's gonna pick it up and throw it in the water.
I had to stop somebody from this other one. They were trying to pick it up, and I was like, it's not a sea turtle.
Yeah.
Not a sea turtle. We got little box turtles everywhere. They're trying to put in the water.
Yeah, well, I mean, if it's someplace where people are gonna harass it, then maybe
Yeah, maybe
you can give
leave
it
it.
to Chad and see.
Extra signs.
Okay,
Appreciate it. Yeah.
that would be cool.
Look at the signs.
Did it violate the new ordinance?
Sorry? Yeah.
Yeah, as much as I
Behind the
hate,
dunes.
as I hate signs,
Is
it's
it something I can display at the pop-up? Or they probably needed for the boroughs?
Yeah, but I
Maybe a
could
copy?
print one
I was
for
gonna say,
you.
take a photograph, yeah, and print it would be cool.
That would be great.
We'll talk about that afterwards. Oh, t-shirts, we need,
Oh, I have t-shirts.
woo! Look at that, see, all you gotta do is ask, right, Chad? Woo! It's gonna make us look real nice in that pop-up booth.
Real nice.
Real nice.
We have to vote on nicknames to go on the back of our shirts. We have to work on a secret handshake, and then what's our colors, we have a song. All these details, man, it's brutal.
We need a party for that.
Okay, I'm gonna pass the torch to you on reports.
I have nothing to add this meeting.
Okay.
I, for the past few months, have been working on turning the arcade at Pink Shell into a nature. And working with management there. So far, it's kind of on pause and everything, but I have recently gotten some okays to start putting up some more educational signage around. And if anybody has ideas about interactive things that you think would be beneficial, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Or you had it. If you've ever been to a nature center and thought, hey, that's cool, we should use that somewhere, let me know.
Nature
Have you been to the
too.
Discovery Center in Lover's Key? Yeah. Ideas there?
Oh, look at that. Okay.
This is here, or at least
Okay.
talked about.
Pass those out after class.
Excellent.
All right, we'll set up shop over there and turn the cameras off so we can talk now. For Times Square, okay,
That's
so,
all I got.
Nature Center. A huge Nature Center fan. I mean, just, up north, they had these little park district, or, forest reserve ones that just,
Let's see, I've been working with Teresa, the archaeologist for Mound House. I've been working with Mound House directly. Put a whole timeline on the wall of the island, and if I get the okay finally, it's gonna.
you need
look
skulls and stuff too, as many as you can get, right? So I'm a collector, so,
Yeah.
nothing endangered, of course, but, I've got,
That'd be great, yeah, because we're looking at a touch tank, all kinds of cool stuff. But there's a lot of stuff around the area where I want to do. I already have a junior ranger program that we teach about nature, but I want something where they go around, and it's not a scavenger hunt per se, but they still go around, and it gets them out into the dunes and learning about the different areas and that where they can. I just really want it very interactive. I'm making a wingspan for the eagles and pelicans
cool.
and stuff on a wall, and just anything, because
ones, yeah, those are impressive. Kids just love this stuff
yeah,
up there.
exactly. So yeah, just any ideas that you guys might have. A watershed one where it talks about how much water's on the planet, and how much we can actually. There's all kinds of neat stuff I've been working with. I have nesting boxes where they build osprey nest on a box. Anyway, yeah.
Pretty cool. Wendy?
Has anybody, or has it ever been on any agenda to have our beaches be non-smoking beaches? They exist. They exist all around the country. And it's just really, when you go to the beach, yelling around the rack line, or even if you just walk up and there's somebody's exited and all their piles of butts are all here. And we have bags that they could put their, things in and take them with them, just put them in the trash. Is it something that you think might be something feasible to, when you're sitting on a beautiful beach and the salt air, and then all of a sudden you get a whiff of a cigarette or a cigar. I know that the beaches I've looked at, they don't ban pipes, because obviously the people smoke the pipe and they take their pipe with them, but the people that are doing these disposable things, even the vaping, I discovered these cylinders.
I see a lot of those now, yeah.
That are vaping.
Yeah, they look like little lighters. Like little
yeah.
Vapors, yeah.
Well, I'm seeing all these things on the beach and just,
Because it's a pollution issue is what it is.
Well, what's the fine for littering? $500, right? Money for the city.
It's as good as the enforcement,
Right, that's, yeah.
well, and that's the issue with a lot.
Yeah.
There's varying degrees of fines, but then again, it's the enforcement. Some people, some places hand out a card with, information or a little bit more direction and.
I got spit on the other day because somebody threw their cigarette butt on the ground right in front of me. I was sitting at the stoplight at Times Square. They threw the cigarette butt on the ground and just stared at me. I was like, it's littering, it's $500 and you spit on my car.
Yeah, they're just, I mean, it's just.
You see how tough it is to enforce.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I even thought poor Chad.
Yeah.
I would love to inform my dream.
We need a cop by every stop sign and stoplight in America, and they would never have to worry about being defunded if they wrote tickets for every single one.
Maybe something to look into is, would they take unpaid code enforcement people?
Sign me up.
Man,
I mean, let's face it, the head count is the issue, isn't it? The cost,
I'll do it for free from the pier to the north end.
I mean, he ties to vigilantes almost. I mean, an interesting concept, actually. I mean, okay.
Citations.
Right. Okay, so I think that's it. No comment? Set agenda for next meeting. We have. You said they're going to come back after WC?
Yes, sir.
That stays on. Boy, street lighting's off. Sea turtle ordinance would be off, right? The obstructions. We have the invasive species, exotics.
Dark skies.
Dark skies, yeah, absolutely. Dark skies. Oh, that's got on that list is there's been no consideration whatsoever for wanting to pursue dark skies.
One guy who had said yes, he had done worked on a project, Dark Skies, and he successfully used 4,000 calories.
I know.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I should forward to you also that Dark Skies just updated their their sort of position, because it's been 15 years since they've done so, and they actually lowered it to 20,000 from 3,000. Give more. It's becoming much more common, more direction.
I'm good for another.
So right now, all we have is the Carlos Beach shorebird nesting, sea turtle, invasive exotics, and dark skies.
Printed it and filled it out.
I mean, there's other things that I think that'll be enough, because that'll give us more time to work on one particular invasive. We can actually do time.
Reapply.
It'd be wrong to have a meeting that was only lasted an hour and a half either, or an hour.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Most people do.
Too many problems.
That's right. Well, there are a lot of problems, aren't there?
Aren't there?
Okay, well, I make a motion to adjourn.
Fucking it.
Any opposition? Okay, 6:27. Motion carries unanimously.
Chad, if I want to add something.
Thank
to
you
next
all
week's
for
meeting,
your time
email
also.
you. If I want to add something to next week's meeting, do I email you?
Yeah, it's best to do that in the meeting.
I did, but he did it too quick.
What's this, Chad? Special agenda?
Steve.
Sit around
No,
and
no,
have
no.
a couple of things back, and all of a sudden.
28.
The thing.
Oh,
That will be a master guard.
has to do with.
He said to do it then.
Yeah.
Where
Actually really
your
that out
information is,
Bye, everyone.
Okay, hey,
Oh, protect it, oh, thank you.
here, I'll come back for my stuff.
yeah, there's the thing, Steve, will you remember to sign the minutes?
Oh, I will, yeah, it's right here, I just needed a ink pen.
Thank you for adding that, Steve.
You want me to go through them?
Yeah. Hey, I was gonna whistle.
Yeah. After, there was a big storm, and I filled up a 5-gallon bucket just with cigarette butts and, bottle tops. Whole thing.
Yeah, you can go over there, I'm just trying to.
And there's a lot of states, there's a lot of beaches that
Potatoes out back, I'll make sure.
are not, I guess, not enforced, but the rule is out there.
Just the guy for the job.
The only
This
problem
is always like a train reality, man, I got all this crap.
No, there's so much.
crap that the city
God.
would get from it because we're such a
You're
part
right.
of town.